Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Welcome, everybody to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. We're going to go ahead and jump into conversation with Jeff Selver tonight for hours 1 and 2. Then we got Steve Stockton and your guy, Drew Benke, for hour 3. Action-packed show. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Let me go ahead and jump into chat and see who has come in first tonight. According to Race Fan, we got Race Fan with the gold. We have SJ with the silver, and we have Lovey Love, Dr. Love with the bronze tonight. That is awesome stuff. Let's go ahead and see who else has come up in here. So we got SJ there, Lovey Love. We have Race Fan. We have Kitty Catty Whack as well. Kitty Catty Whack is here. We have T-Bone. T-Bone's in the building. Lil Cam 51 joining us on YouTube instead of Twitch this time. I see you. Lil Cam 51. I see you. We also have Mel WD40 getting us lubed up for the show, saying, hey, Mr. Rob G, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up. Roger Murray dropping gems. What do we got? November 2nd, 1975, teenager Janet Kay and member of her family witnessed UFO land on a field in Medford, Minnesota. Roger Murray always keeps us up to date on stuff. Appreciate you showing up tonight as well. Let's see, who else do we have? We got Road Flare. Road Flare is here. Hey, Road Flare. We got Bay Watcher. We have Wes H. Wes H is in the building. We have Jessica S. Jessica S is in the building as well. Miss Catherine Jones, I see you. Greeting, Mr. Rob G and SOR fans. Appreciate you coming on in. Let's see, who else do we have? Looking down the list. We got Brown Dwarf in the building. Brown Dwarf is here. Sierra is also here. Appreciate you showing up. We have Terrence Wills. Terrence Wills is here. So is Frankie B. And Aloha Dave. We got Bob Thorson is here. Thank you for showing up. Operation Shutdown. Mr. Rob G is taking us on a journey tonight. You could best believe. Erico Dion Viglione. Mr. Rob G, appreciate you showing on up. Alga Ray is here as well. Angels of Life Nikki is here tonight. Polly Rotterman is here. And hopefully I can get to everybody here. Yeah, looks like we're caught up. Awesome stuff. So let's go ahead and get the podcast side of this started real quick. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. Tonight we are going to have an awesome show. We have author Jeff Selver, and he's actually an experiencer as well. So we'll get into some great conversation. We've had him on before. It is going to be a great show. So that's what we'll do for hours 1 and 2. Then hour 3, obviously, we got you guys, Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, and our after hours wrap up with Drew Banky. So it's going to go down. We're going to have a great show tonight, you guys. Let's get ready. Michigan UFO sightings. I see you. Thanks for coming in as well. All right. We got about 15 seconds. Five seconds, and here we go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You've just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G, and tonight we'll be broadcasting to our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us, X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio, at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website, yes, it's spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right here, Mr. Bumblefoot, and oh, so much more. Like I said, it's going to be an awesome show tonight. We have Jeff Selver joining us, author, experiencer. For hours 1 and 2, we have Drew Banky and Steve Stockton joining us in hours 3. It's going to be an action-packed show. Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring in our guest tonight. He's joined us before. We had a great conversation, and I look forward to having some more of the same here tonight. Let me go ahead and bring up our guest, none other than Mr. Jeff Selver. And Jeff, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah. Great. Glad to have you. We had a great conversation last time. I rewatched those interviews, and we can go so many more places tonight. I did want to start off, because it was maybe 8 months ago we talked. And for those who may not have had a chance to catch that interview, let's kind of bring them up to speed on you, who you are, kind of what brought you into this field. Let's start.
Yeah, you got it. So I was not an aliens and UFO guy, and that's what I kind of stick to. And I had some strange events happen to me when I was in my 20s. And I always frame it as a consciousness event that occurred in 1997. I was 20 years old at the time. And it was paired with a message to abandon my life, to kind of remove myself from society, if you will. Now, that sounds so strange to say, and I'm very aware of that. But it didn't have, all these years later, it has no references in any type of, scriptures or spiritual books that I still to this day haven't found. And when I listened to this consciousness event and I decided to travel, I started seeing orbs and objects in the sky. And I didn't know that as alien contact at the time. And that lasted for about 2.5 years. And then there was a set of synchronicities, if you will, kind of magical events that kind of aligned up that had me ending traveling. So it ended up being this very strange and odd period of my life when and I was actually very happy to have it be done. So I kind of forgot about it in per se, and it adapted to this new life I had, where I met my wife and kind of went to Toronto. That's basically in Toronto, Ontario, and lived there for about 10 years, moved around. And by 2016, that consciousness event that happened to me came back to kind of haunt me. And it was unresolved emotions, unresolved feelings. What was that? Why did it happen to me? Why did it happen the way it did? And I didn't knock on the UFO alien door until 2019. and it was Jeremy Corbell's documentary on Bob Lazar that seemed grounded at the time. It was well done, and that had me curious about alien content I had kind of read about in my teenage years, Whitley Strieber's books, and I offhandedly decided to start looking at UFO content online, and I started looking at a good YouTube channel called Finding UFO that just has uploaded videos of people's anomalous objects in the sky. And when I did that, the objects that I had been seeing traveling came back. So there was this weird link that all of a sudden that kind of got matched up. Why? Like, first off, that consciousness event was tied and paired with objects in the sky, and then that they would respond and come back when I started kind of going down this rabbit hole. And the short version of the story, everything is laid out in a book that's true. And I've been very public in speaking in interviews and presentations. And so this information is all available online, whether it's through my website or the YouTube channel or other interviews. But the bottom line is that it started with finding the location, finding a screen memory actually is what it was. And I didn't really understand these things at the time. And it was a screen memory blocking a contact event that happened to me when I was 17 at the time, 17 years old, and it just cracked everything open, domino effect style. That lasted almost a year of kind of screen memories coming out, and it started with this kind of 16-year-old contact event, 17, first one 17, but then that led to the 16-year-old because it kind of matched up. There's a memory of the contact event in the 17-year-old contact event, and so the previous ones kind of unraveled, and then it just domino affected the ones after that. And it turned out I had them while I was traveling, and I kind of didn't realize all this stuff. And then there was some as an adult too, and all of it was obscured in. It's really wacky how they did this, but it seems to be some kind of frequency effect of the mind, not the brain. I'm actually not convinced anymore. There's a physical tissue brain thing going on here, but in the NDE research, the near-death experience research, mind is not brain, and they have a pretty, embodied memory by Thomas Verney, Dr. Thomas Verney. That a lot of the memory doesn't occur in the physical tissue brain; it occurs in cellular, in the cells. And there's something going on here where the memory is not 100% tied in the brain, and the entities are able to alter frequencies, and then you kind of remember the contact events previously when you're interacting with them. It's very wacky how they did this, and they effectively obscured 26 contact events from my mind. And then when I went down that rabbit hole in 2019, they kind of wanted it open, or maybe I wanted it and they wanted to facilitate that. And that's what ended up happening. And then so I basically was very public about the whole process, put everything out into a book. I was presenting on it in UFO groups. And I've had several people go down the rabbit hole, and they vouched for me publicly. Ian Howling, who works with Linda Moulton Howe, and Susie Hansen, who's author of The Dual Soul Connection, also a contactee. So that's the gist of that.
Wow, that's amazing. And we definitely talked about the book a little on the last interview, and I actually want to bring it up on the screen just so people can see it here. This is the book.
Yeah.
And if you want to go ahead and speak to it.
Yeah, sure. So now there is something very unique going on that the aliens clearly wanted me. So first off, what they did with me was very unique. And I still haven't found anybody who's got the same thing. I was basically an experiment for them. And the experiment was the consciousness event that occurred in 1997. It turned out to be something that they wanted to do to a human and try to see what happens. and I, unbeknownst to myself, agreed to it. So it's a weird game that happened to me. And they spaced it out very well, so I would never notice it. And there was a couple power suggestions to make sure I never looked at it and that kind of thing. And the result was 7 contact events about consciousness. And the entity's ability to work with a human in this way is very fascinating. And how they can facilitate an event like this is very fascinating. So that's the first 7. And then after the experiment was done and I started traveling, the entities started kind of telling me their plans, if you will. So there was a weird bunch of information that I wasn't privy to understanding at the time. And it was involved in the hybrids. It turned out what they wanted to do with me was take that consciousness event and had it power up my genetics. And then they wanted to use my genetics, something they didn't really share with me in the moment until it started occurring. And so there's a weird game here too about how they handle humans and how we deal with it. But they started sharing a lot of their plans. And at the time, it was just
real quick, Jeff.
Yeah,
real quick. I just for the radio people, I just want them to know that we have the cover of your book on the screen, and it's called "The Rising" and
thanks.
the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth. So that's what Jeff is speaking to right now.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for reminding me that we're dealing with people who can't see this. Yeah, you got it. Yes. So that's it. So the second half of the story, if you will, is kind of intertwined with how a human handles them, but also their plans, kind of the outline. And they really wanted this to be a something for the public, for a story, for one of the many actually on the planet right now. And in 2016, I actually get addressed, write it out into a book. The contact event, without my knowing at the time, was telling me, you're going to get the memories, and when you do, write it out into a book. And it's all right now matching. So the idea is that they plan to put hybrids on the planet, and they kind of, I don't know if it's symbolic or what. Basically, she said there'll be a city, and when she showed it to me, it was kind of a mental thing that she showed me through her eyes, kind of like they can put these imagery into your mind, and it was a city filled with human gray alien hybrids, and it was, and the enlightened part of what I'm talking about is that whatever that thing that we call enlightenment is, this human identification of some kind of, you could say completion, a psychological and maybe spiritual and energetic completion. That's not a problem for them. And this seems to represent some level about what the level of consciousness that we're dealing with these entities. And maybe the reasons why they're so detached from certain things is that they kind of exist on that level. And so that's basically the gist of it. The book is a summary of all the 26 contact events, with the consciousness experiment they did combined with their plans, all laid out in just exactly how it was told to me. And then every contact event is a rabbit hole. They kind of give me information about something, and I might reflect on that. Plus the traveling stories in there too, so it ends up being very it's called a page turner. People tell me it's a page turner. It gets you engrossed. So that's the whole point. So
that's awesome. And that's kind of what we did kind of focus on, was the 26 contacts on the last show. So when we say contacts, are all of these abductions, so you on board of a ship, or are these them also visiting you in your home?
Yeah. Okay. So an interesting way that I'm unique from some other contactees, I can never say that I've ever had a gray alien ever in my house. Never have I ever experienced anything like that. The majority of them are out in nature, actually. So now I'm traveling, so that's part of it, is that I'm out in nature, and then sometimes they're in daylight, and then I'm altered when I'm with them, or they would take me away from the place I was sleeping. So there's a couple contact events while traveling that appears that they pull me out of the car, and I'm not clear how they did that. And actually, the contact events happen right here in my bedroom, but they don't come in. They appear to take me out. So I don't have anything. Those happen only as an adult, but everything else is while I'm out in the world. I'm either with friends, or I'm hiking, or I've left the group and I decided to veer off, and then turned out there was a contact event. Practically almost all of my contact events are out while I'm out doing something, and then they're able to obscure the memory in such precision that this guy didn't know about it.
All right. And I have, which we normally hold the questions for the second hour, but I have one that pertains to right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to know when this all started, or how long ago was this?
Yeah. So, so there's the childhood contact events. So when I was a child, there's 5 of them. I'm aware of them now. And so whatever, that was 1980s something. This experiment started when I was 16 years old in the year 1993. It was initiated in 1997, December of 1997. So there's 7 contact events between 1993 and 1997. The year of traveling, and when it ends is the year 2000. So from 1998 to the year 2000 is another, I don't know. By that point, it's 23. So 7 minus 23, and then there's an additional 3 as an adult. So they came periodically. Once in 2008, once in 2016, and then once in I'm pretty certain it's 2017. And me and my wife were involved with that. And that happened, that was 2017. So that was the last physical contact I've had. And then now it's turned into a different relationship of orbs and paranormal activity. But the last physical contact was 2017.
All right. And I do actually wanting to have this other question addressed too.
Yeah.
Miss Catherine Jones is asking, which pertains to now, where will this city be located?
Yeah. So I get that question asked a lot. And it's not like they 100% told me, but they kind of hinted at these things. So in my 10th contact event, now let's just back up. Something's going to happen. Something is going to happen on the planet. And that's all I can really say to that. And they do address that information in the book, in the story. And it seems like there is something much greater going on here that may change the nature of the planet. Maybe, listen, man, there's something going on here about consciousness, and it's, this is a simulation, right? The physicists are saying it's a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something going on when they alter the planet, and it's a planet event of some kind. And when that planet event happens, this is how it is addressed to me, that after that planet event, so when humanity is shaken up, they place the city. Now, was it symbolically that they told me they put it, that it was in a hologram I saw in the middle of North America, and as if like dead center North America. And it was a massive city, as if to contain a global population. What would that, like, it didn't say that's where it's being placed, but they showed it to me on a hologram, and the city was dead center North America. And it ends up being weird for me, because just one of the rabbit holes of my story, I would end up learning in Missing 411, David Paulides' documentary, that aliens told a fellow to dig a well in the middle of North America. And then when he did, he was told by them, there's going to be an event that happens in your world, and this is going to help you. Very weird that my city would match up with this dead center in the middle of North America. And it's because there's a water reservoir. I think it's the world's largest water reservoir underneath the middle of North America. So that's a very weird thing that aliens would show that to me, and then I end up learning there's a connection there. And I don't know, man. That's all I know is that that's what I was shown. And I don't know if it's symbolic. I always try not to play prophet here, but that's what I was shown, and I have to relay that information.
Yeah, definitely. What do you how for you within this story does consciousness play a part, if you were to explain that?
So humans don't even know what consciousness is yet. We literally don't, actually. We have scientists still debating the nature of the brain and the mind. And consciousness is clearly intertwined in some kind of quantum way. We can't quite figure it out. Roger Penrose's theory, right? The idea that it seems like maybe we have some theories that the brain is actually drawing from a quantum field. And that maybe that is what spirit always was a quantum, entanglement, non-local, part of ourselves. And so the entities can stop time, and they can manipulate time. So I was trained in Vedic philosophy. And Vedic philosophy believes that we're connected to no time and no space. And it's my personal experience that the quantum part of ourselves is linked to outside time and outside space. I guess you could call that the higher self. So the entities, this is all mastered. Not just that, I think the crafts are alive and they facilitate this. Rudy Schilt, who worked with Susie Hansen has a really good theory that I think is really how to lean towards this. So instead of looking at the abilities of the craft through physics, he actually says, well, maybe we should start looking at it through consciousness, as if the craft is an aspect of the self, like a light consciousness, like as a light body. So then that would explain how they can hold time, they can freeze time. It would explain how they could do the manipulation of matter that it does. They can phase in and out. Stop looking, and that's also they can control light. Like he has a really good write-up in Susie Hansen's book about the ability how they can control light is so backwards from how we understand light to exist. And they can control light. It's very common. Look at MUFON reports. You can see, beams are controlled. The light it doesn't relay out a radiation when it's laid out on the ground. So if you look at this through the lens of consciousness, then it starts making sense how they can manipulate these things. If you think of it through physics, you don't have a frame of reference for it. So it doesn't make any sense, and it just looks like magic. And so I'm pretty certain it's that the way I actually frame this is that all consciousness is originating outside of time, human and NHI, non-human intelligence. And then look at it from that angle. And then the entities are utilizing this stuff with the way technology does for us. Water can be mastered because we have technology that helps us master water. The soil, and we can farm, and we can dam with water, and we can farm with soil, and then we can become masters of those things. And that's the same here too. I think the quantum tech allows you to master consciousness and all of its abilities. And then that can be extended and measured and controlled in ways that are just mind-boggling for humans. That's what I think is the consciousness connection to all this.
Jeff, it is amazing that you brought this up, and it's crazy because on my personal channel just yesterday, I had a show on UFOs and aircraft and why these things might be interested in that. And then we went down a rabbit hole where I made a statement of, in these CE5 events, because we talked about the movie Nope and how it was depicted as the craft was alive, and that's what took us down the rabbit hole, because I started pointing out that a lot of the sightings that happen, these craft themselves appear to be alive. You had the person that talked to Stephen Greer, I can't remember the guy's name, but he talked about having an encounter on a back road, I think out in Barstow or Mojave in the desert, and he rubbed the craft and it felt like a cat's tongue, and it kind of felt alive. Right. And then so I posed this question. I was like, okay, well, let's think about CE5, right? What we think of CE5, we think, okay, you are tapping into consciousness and you're tapping into the extraterrestrial consciousness, which in turn, okay, we depict them as being inside of these nuts and bolts craft, and then responding to us by maybe pushing a button to illuminate a light. But what if you were actually connecting consciously to the craft itself? And that was what was responding to you through consciousness. So it's wild that you brought that up, because I was just talking about that.
Well, it could be the entity inside linked to the craft, and then you're like, I've had telepathy from craft, and so it's with the entity that I'm familiar with, and so that says to me, but I agree with you. There's some twist going on here where they respond so seamlessly, as if it's a part of nature, as if they're the snow, that they're the raindrop. And I've seen these things, do very paranormal activity. That's how I typically twist to frame it. I know we want to think of it as nuts and bolts craft, but they literally live in the realm of paranormal. The behavior of these objects are so strange, and it starts to make sense if it could be the entity itself linked into a craft, and then it's just seamless for her. So for this entity, she's just part of the craft, and then she's responding in paranormal ways, and it just enhances. So she can look like an object that we can decipher some physics from, while simultaneously she's linked to it and she's able to do weird paranormal activity.
Okay, hold right there, Jeff. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, guys, right here with Jeff Selver, getting into some real good talk, consciousness, extraterrestrials, the connection, also the alien hypothesis, methods of extraterrestrial contact. You guys don't go anywhere. Awesome conversation tonight right here on the After Hours Radio Show on Spaced Out Radio. right, we are clear. Awesome stuff, Jeff. And 5-minute break here as well.
Sure.
So if you need to do anything, this is definitely a great time to do that.
Great. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. Great questions, Rob. Awesome.
Yeah. Man, it was just meant to be. I can't believe you brought that aspect up, because I think that is really, and I made this statement, and this is what I hate though, because during this break, I always say this: we can talk, but we'll have to rehash it again once we come back, right?
Yeah,
but I'll tell you, we were looking at or thinking about this, and it was like, there's this idea that some of these things are alive, like these plasma balls, like they are life itself, like some different form of life. And I think that's what kind of takes us down this rabbit hole. We'll do that when we come back. But you can
let's make sure we talk about it, because I do have some things to say there. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I'll take sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to take a quick break. You're right. I'll grab it.
Yeah, okay, for sure.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yep. So, guys, that's going to be awesome tonight. It's going to be awesome conversation. If you missed Jeff and I's first conversation, you can jump in the archive. It was excellent, and this is kind of building off of that initial conversation. A lot of people missed that episode because it only has like 800 and something views, which is mind-blowing based on the things that we were talking about and going over. So, when we're done with this show, you definitely hop in the archive, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. Go to the After Hours playlist and scroll through. We got about 100 episodes in there, which is crazy to think of, but you'll find the one with Jeff Selver, and this kind of piggybacks off of our initial conversation. So good stuff. And yes, let's see. I have been tagging your questions. I only asked those couple earlier because they tied right into what was being said in the moment. The rest of these questions I am holding, and we will ask those at the end of hour number dos. Yeah, you dip back in. Like I said, historic stuff is an indicator of what happens in the future. And historically, the conversation we had was awesome. And that's why we have Jeff back tonight. There are other examples of that as well. So we will be bringing, we will be continuing conversations that we previously had. And it's going to be awesome. Great stuff. So let me see. Okay, I'm tagging you. I got you, T-Bone. I see you out there. Area 51, thanks for coming in. Let's see. Jay True Seeker, thanks for showing up tonight. Who else do we have? Kira I am, thanks for coming on in. Space, thanks for showing up tonight. Riley Ron Ivy Forrest, like the name, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up tonight. Cielo Azul, thank you. Amanda Carroll, appreciate you. And there were a few more. Aloha Dave. Let's see. Cat's tongue, which is crazy because I just talked about the cat's tongue that the guy rubbed on the back road, and it felt like a cat's tongue.
That's great.
Yeah. The Andromedan, thanks for coming in. Adam Weiss. And let's see who else. Queen Peachy Keen D. Thank you for coming in. Angels of Life Nikki, Hillbilly Herb. Thank you. Kenzo. Selver is a legend. Kenzo says Selver is a legend. I agree. We had a great combo.
Sweet. Thank you.
Let's see. John Condor, Bob Thorson, Thanks for the awesome super chat as well, Bob Thorson. I saw that. And T-Bone as well. T-Bone and Bob Thorson, appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. So we got about 15 seconds while we come back. And let's get ready to go.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're back with our guest here, Jeff Selver, and we were just starting to get into some really deep stuff here, getting into consciousness. You guys don't go anywhere. It's going to be an awesome conversation. And if you guys are on social media, X or Instagram at Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show, please consider going ahead and giving us a follow. We would love it. We would appreciate it as we jump back into the conversation. Jeff, we were just talking about the fact that, you know, it could be perceived that these craft might be alive in some shape or form. Reference the movie Nope as well as being, you know, one of those movies where you didn't really get it because you thought it was going to be nuts and bolts, but he just flipped the script and showed you that for whatever reason, I don't know who, you know, influenced him to make this a living craft, but it does tie in to other experiences where it seems like these craft are biological. We're talking about the consciousness aspect and how maybe you're connecting to these craft that are conscious. And, you know, you were just kind of talking about that before I had to go to break. So if you want to go ahead and pick that back up.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, that's it. I think we're just dealing with things we haven't dealt with yet on the human level. And I'm not clear that this is not too far off from a quantum computing. And Ross Colfer actually had a really good point he said in an interview, and I don't know if he's ever repeated it since, but are we dealing with a scenario here where consciousness can be put onto a computer? So your consciousness can be dumped into a computer. And if you're dealing with quantum and quantum computing, is that something on the lines that we're dealing with here, where you can transfer consciousness over? Literally, your spirit, the energy, the core energy of what you are, can it be transferred over into a living computer? Or sorry, a computer, and then the computer becomes living, it becomes you. And so something like that appears to be happening here. That's all I can really say to that. And the versions of that, then, you sitting at home while you're driving a craft, you know, flying around a planet, like, is that what this is? Like something extreme like that? But it's something is going on here that is bending our ideas of what we think we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, and then it just ties into other aspects because here was a thing, a conclusion I kind of came to, or a question that I posed, and it was like, okay, now if we take a step back now that we're talking about craft in themselves potentially being conscious, then will we find out at the end of this that out of all these sightings that we're seeing, because there's things up there all the time, will we find out that actual nuts and bolts ET operated in the craft sightings are the minority, in that a lot of these other things that seem to be unmanned, like my sighting, 47 objects, I don't think there was any extraterrestrial inside those objects, but I think they showed that they were biological in some way, the way they moved. Right. So will we find out that there are these things that are living, you know, conscious things that we're calling craft, and then find out that nuts and bolts alien operated craft are actually the minority, and there's a little bit of both going on?
So we mentioned in the break there between us, talked about the plasma. And yes, this is my ultimate theory, is I think they're originating from a plasma dimension. And I think that biology can convert into plasma. I don't know what's going on here, but the entities, the gray aliens, can convert themselves into orbs. And part of my story is that they did this to me too. And there's something going on here with, I'm pretty certain collective consciousness we are emanating out we are projecting out a reality. With a collective consciousness, we therefore create a certain trajectory of the simulation. And then when something from a plasma dimension is coming in, it's shape-shifting into this dimension. It's shape-shifting into a form. And so crafts are materializing as a certain form, and the entities might be doing something similar. And then, yeah, the crafts might be some kind of variation of this plasma. And that's because the plasma entities would make sense when it comes to some of the sightings, when you have these balls of light sightings going on. And then I've just seen it myself, that we're dealing with orbs that can phase and unphase. And at times it appears that we're dealing with physical craft objects. And we know we are because of a reverse engineering program that has been made public. So there definitely is physical tissue, physical nuts and bolts crafts. But the next level might be that they aren't just alive, but there's some kind of plasma anyway, I know that they're originating from a plasma dimension, but I don't know, but the entities themselves display some of these things already to humans, to contactees, that they themselves turn into orbs. And I think it's something like that crossing over where the crafts themselves might be able to do such a thing as well too. And as they are linked with the consciousness of the individual who's driving them. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole because most recently there was the thought that, for instance, and this is one I keep bringing up, but the shuttle photo where it showed they had that 13-mile tether that broke off, and there were all these little orb type things kind of coming up to it and swarming it, and there were so many of them. And NASA described that away as shards of ice tumbling in space. Right. But did things seem intelligent? And then the other one was, I think, STS-75, Shuttle Mission 75, where they had this orb type thing that was coming across Earth and then kind of darted back. And as soon as it did, a projectile came through the atmosphere. And so that just leans into the fact that what they were talking about is that these plasma type objects might live in the upper atmosphere and kind of mingle up there, and that they themselves are living things and not being controlled by extraterrestrial. So it's wild, because if that's true, then you have things that are independent of extraterrestrials that are coming here that we know are and that we see up there, and that maybe these things live in the upper atmosphere of all planets. There's another planet within our solar system, can't remember which one, but they said they detected like levels of a particular substance in the upper atmosphere that could support life. Yeah. And just thinking of that is just wild.
That's right in line with the concept of the shadow biome. So, and there's a reason Dr. Gary Nolan invested in a South African company that was investigating this, because this is my experience. And that I've said this, I said it in a presentation, and it's on a video that'll be out on my YouTube channel about 2 Fridays from now. And it is, they're in the atmosphere. They're coming from the atmosphere. I'm actually certain they're in a dimensional realm that's linked to Earth. And then they're coming through the atmosphere, and they live in the atmosphere of that realm. And there's something going on here with the atmosphere. You're right, where they're interlinked. It's like they live in the atmosphere. And that is exactly my experience. And then that's what the shadow biome is. I'm pretty certain is there's some kind of living atmosphere realm going on here, and plasma entities are originating out of it. Sounds totally bonkers, and I think that it is. But also it's just matching. The whole picture is matching that some kind of atmosphere realm linked to plasma entities. There's something going on with the bodies, though. There is still something genetics related. So, and in the reverse engineering program, they do have biology, and people are seeing biology, and there's still something going on with genetics. So it's a really huge picture, maybe all of it originating out of realms humans weren't prepared to begin comprehending.
Yeah. What do you think we find? So, because in the book, and obviously we don't want to give up too much about the book, but you have, and for the radio audience as well, we have this city being depicted. This futuristic sort of crystal city is. Would you describe it that way, or
a metallic emerald was the feeling from the mental imagery that she projected. A metallic emerald. Yeah.
Okay, and so this enlightened city is okay. An enlightened city on Earth, where if you were, because I don't know if you give the detail, and we don't want to give up the book, but
No,
without,
I don't care about that. That's fine.
okay, good. So where on Earth then would the city pop up if you had to think about it?
Oh, so I answered that question before, and so I mentioned Central of North America was what I was shown on a hologram, my 10th contact event. Again, I'm not playing prophet here. I can only relay the information that they relayed, and was it symbolic? You know, that's I lean towards that. I even say that in the book. Is it symbolic what they're telling me? I leave it up to the listener, the reader, to make that choice, because all I can do is tell you that they thought this information was important for people to hear. And the more I dig into all of this information coming out through whistleblowers and, the decades long databases, by the way, that's what we're up against now. We have decades long databases of contact and sightings and mysterious paranormal activity. And a lot of it is linking up. And so something is going on here with why they showed me the middle of America. And so, yeah. And what else to be said about it? Just that I'm aware that the human has to, there's no rule. So the entities that I worked with or communicated with and interacted with and still do are not, race and cultural position and all these things are human constructs. And they're more nature entities. And just the level of your own ability to take on some of the dimensional content is really the only thing that separates us from them. It's the kind of idea. Can you handle, our ideas or our world or the dimensions that they exist in or the dimensions that they work with, and then they make their technology work with? Can you handle that? And if you can't, then you can't be there and you can't work with it, kind of thing. And there's something along those lines going on here. Like the human has to kind of elevate themselves. Imagine that this is all about an ethereal realm. So we talked about the atmosphere. Well, that would mean there might be an ethereal realm. Maybe it's very thin. Maybe it's etheric. So we have to get into a thinner aspect of our own consciousness. We have to move into a place where we start feeling the environment ourselves. And that's maybe what we need to do. And so humans, we shut ourselves down from the environment, right? We don't, especially because we've polluted it and there's a lot of sales and advertisement and violence. So then we have blockages in our own consciousness. Well, what if all that obstructs us from experiencing this thinner reality that they're emerging out of and they've mastered with all their tech? So then we need to alter ourselves and we need to listen, get into a quieter mind frame of ourselves and have a deeper experience of what consciousness is and how we're linked through a unified field. And then being able to sit and utilize a space like that is, I think, what we might need to do to embrace a city like this. That, as far as I'm aware, that's what has been relatively communicated to me. So.
Do you think that they are, do you think they specifically chose Earth, or do you think this is something they're probably doing more broadly throughout the universe? They're finding planets and manifest or executing these sorts of plans. Do you think did they have these cities in other places around the universe?
I think that we are on the cusp of learning that our planet is maybe entangled with other things. Like, there's quantum entanglement. Well, maybe there's planet entanglement. Maybe the planet is interlinked with other things. And that's partially why there's a heavy invested interest in interacting with us now as we are damaging the planet and the ecosystem and so much more. And we're impacting other species. And there's some kind of entanglement thing going on here that is very obvious to me. I do believe the mantis, the lead species, the controller species, however anybody wants to label that species, there's some kind of overarching species that is involved here. And I'm certain they are the seeders. They're the seeders of the species, of the human species at some point, or combined our genetics with alien genetics. I'm convinced of that. And that maybe these gray entities who are interlinked with our planets are tied. They're aware of that these over this mantis type species, and that those mantis may have made them as well, and that they're aware of that while we aren't, and that some version of something going on here that they need to interact with us and alter us to preserve the planet is a big part of this. And I don't know if they think of it as collapsing timelines. I don't know if they think of it as two environments that got damaged. I don't know if that's what this is, but there's something larger here. I do believe they are interacting with other civilizations out in space. I'm pretty convinced of that. But I also think this is a homegrown problem, and there's some kind of entanglement with another environment that the Earth is involved with, and we kind of don't know that. And we are under-evolved in our awareness to understand that. So then they're just taking action to kind of preserve and preserve the environment and preserve the planet.
You know, we normally kind of look at the technological arc or path that we're taking potentially is the same one that these extraterrestrials have taken, as far as like steam engine combustion and kind of wherever it takes us next. They've already been there. Do you think that I feel like it's more plausible that maybe they didn't take that path at all, and maybe what's just powering these craft is just something totally unrelated. I was thinking more of maybe something that taps into, because they think, okay, if we can reverse engineer craft, then we've discovered free energy. But I kind of think that maybe they're tapping into like the whole universal energy, like the energy that powers everything. It would seem like maybe they're tapping into that.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That is what it is. It's a 0 point energy, it's called. And that is what it is. It's 0 point energy. And that's what was communicated to me through telepathy in these private conversations I have with them. And it's not channeling, but there is sometimes I get intermittent conversations, and 0 point energy was a part of it. And then it turns out the Podesta emails, part of the WikiLeaks hack, and they were turned out to be Hillary Clinton. Podesta was in Hillary Clinton's administration, or some links to Hillary Clinton. I can't remember. Oh yeah, he was a part of he would be part of the administration if Hillary had won. And he was talking to Edgar Mitchell, and Edgar Mitchell appears to have been in contact with these entities. At least that's how he relays it in the emails. It's pretty weird. And 0 point energy was mentioned, and the ability for them to give us 0 point energy, and that is the ability to grab energy out of the quantum field. Yeah.
Do you think Tesla discovered that? The ability to do that?
Yeah, I don't know those theories. I know of him. I don't know too much of his theories, I don't know, man. I know
they kind of took his research after he passed on, because of what he had discovered, and it's just thought a lot of people theorize that he had kind of maybe tapped into that ability that he had created free energy, and then maybe it was actually in the method that these extraterrestrials have already discovered. Because if that's the case, then that would be amazing that he would have been able to kind of discover or recreate something that they're already doing. So that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it would be. And I don't have the answer to that. Yeah, you got it.
So what do you, as far as your contact with extraterrestrials, what is aside from the city, what is the general message that they tell you? 26 different contacts. What is the general message that you're getting overall, as far as humanity's role in moving forward, or will we ascend? Are they going to allow us, to join with this galactic federation that people talk about? Do you get anything like that when you contact?
Yeah, and it is. It's I think that I know the origin of where all this ascension ideas come from, and I think collectively humans are picking things up. I think collectively we all kind of know something's around the corner, and I think a lot of people want to be in a better society that supports, supports truth, maybe our true nature. And I think humans don't fully, I think we don't fully know our true nature. We see some things on the internet and on TV, and we question, our existence a little bit. And I think that the role the entities play know that they will be excelling us towards that, towards our true nature. Yet there's a middle ground. That's this middle part that seems to be the whole, how we get there. It seems to be the real crux of the entire picture. And I am fully convinced that this is a version of the story that where humans evolve into a new type of human. And it's really, they call it the new human. And it's a planetary identity that maybe we're aware of not just our own personal potential. Actually, the elder called it the great unveiling to me. And the great unveiling isn't, I mean, maybe it could be included, unveiling of their presence, but it's not that. It's your great unveiling. It's my great unveiling. It's every person listening, it's their great unveiling, and the unveiling of who and what you actually are. That you've been living for thousands of years in a body, in the reincarnation, death and life cycle, and also that you have a higher, energy that plans that. So you're linked to the universe in a way that you aren't even aware of, and we all are. And they have tech that can expose all that to us. And then we learn how to work with that. And I think we learn how to evolve into a species that understands this grander link about ourselves. So this is what I know is coming around the corner. And it is because this is what they did with me. It really is. It's just what they did with me. They exposed that background with me, and they definitely could easily do it with anybody else. And so that's a big part of the picture, is the who and what the human is, and us moving into that. And then we have this tech, their quantum tech, that helps utilize that ability, and then our ability to sit with it and work, because you can't just expose that. How you handle it is a whole other thing too. But that's what I'm 100% convinced it's around the corner for us. Yeah.
Okay, and the new human, I think Mary Rodwell talks about that, and we kind of went over that. But looking into it, so do you feel like, because I had a guest on, Reed Summers, and he actually, within this field, there's not a lot of people that want to talk about both sides of the spectrum, whether what's happening is good, what's happening is not so good.
Yeah.
One point, though, that we did talk about that I want to ask you about is, do you ever think about the fact that we may be being fed incorrect information by extraterrestrials? Do you think there's ever a layer of deception there? Right. And we kind of just are used as the conduit to go out there and preach it to the rest of the world. Have you ever thought about that?
Of course I thought that. And my nature, I try to be as honest and as authentic about my experience as possible. And my nature is definitely not something with which I have a Vedic guru. Like, I practice a spirituality with which I try to live up to values. So I definitely don't want to be preaching something, or not, I don't want to use the word preaching, but relaying information that is wrong or was twisted, and I was used in some kind of weird way. And I actually frame it in the book. There's a difference between what I was told and what I experienced. And I can't deny what I experienced. So what I experienced was that my own higher self, the guy who birthed me, there's another version of me, of some other higher level me that's in another dimension. It is on side with this. And it's proven to me in the way that, until you're, I guess, a spiritualist, until you seek, because, this goes into a weird game, because if people don't know, you can prove your own power through synchronicities. Yeah, go ahead.
Right there. We're actually going into a break right now, Jeff. Good. You guys don't go anywhere. Awesome conversation with Jeff Selver will continue right after this break.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Okay, Jeff, we're off camera for 5 minutes. See you in a
Sounds
minute.
good.
All right. right, everyone. All right. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hour radio show, After Hour number 2. as we go ahead and get ready to come back from our radio break here in about 30 seconds. Let me go ahead and look out here. Tim James, welcome. Appreciate you showing on up. And I saw someone else here. Ethanol saying weekend show starts hour early. Yep. Weekend shows are 8 p.m. Pacific until 11 p.m. The weekday shows are 9 p.m. Pacific until midnight. So just a little handy note there. If you missed any of this, you can hop in the archive, youtube.com/@spacedoutradio. And here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2. Back with our guest, Jeff Selver, as we're going ahead and jumping into the whole consciousness situation here with the extraterrestrials. Also talking about his book, The Rising, and the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth. Guys, the questions, I've been tagging them. We will be asking those here in hour 2. And like I said before, if you missed any of this show, you can jump in the archive at any time. youtube.com/@spacedoutradio. You can get what you missed. So jumping back into the conversation, Jeff, had a question. With 26 contacts, do you think that individuals that there's, do they contact everyone, or are there certain people that may be being picked out?
Yeah, I think they're picking people out. I do think they're picking people out. And I think there's some pre-required things going on here. They don't just do things willy-nilly. And I'm pretty convinced that, like, listen, I was part of a hybrid program. So there was an exchange. That's exactly how it was framed with me. So we, you give us this, we give you that kind of idea. So there's always a trade-off, an exchange, and a conscious one at that. So that involves itself. And then maybe how far you can go down that rabbit hole depends on what they do with you and how much information they give. And yeah, but they definitely pick people. I'm pretty aware of that. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you, as far as some people have different outlooks on what hybridization means as far as the agenda for the extraterrestrials, how do you view their intent behind the hybridization program?
I think it's more holistic than we are ever used to. And so we can't imagine it being as benevolent as it's designed to be, I think. And I think that that's maybe why they are shaking things up because I think they want to demobilize the idea of the threat from on their behalf. I don't know that, but it doesn't, with what makes sense about how they explain to me that there would be a shakeup, like a planet event, a destabilization, if you will, of the society. Is the perfect time to do that. And then we aren't mobilized in a military fashion. And then once you start interacting with these things, I'm pretty certain people will get it. I'm pretty certain once you start interacting with them, the touchy-feely nature of them is much more benevolent than we are. Humans aren't even. Our culture and our world is heavier than their world is. That's what it is. They are much more, gentler, and the entities that I know are life preservers. That's the way I frame that. And we might not be, as a collective, we might not be looked at as life preservers. And that's the difference. It's something a lot more detached from what we are used to, and it's something a lot more benevolent than we are prepared to understand. And that is the gist of what the book is too, as they demonstrate to me the type of people they chose for the hybrid program. There's a whole example of that here, and everybody was not enlightened, but everyone was, they were real spiritual people. They were people in their hearts, and those are the genetics that they chose. And there was something along those lines about being said about the type of people that they wanted as hybrids, or the type of hybrids that they were trying to create. So there is a link there. And again, I think the human race is a little bit too heavy for them. And I think that there's something like that kind of going on here.
When I try to think about the hybridization program and like the purpose, I often wonder, okay, are they are the hybrids being produced for on-world activities or for off-Earth activities?
So they do explain to me several different reasons they were taking genetics. And yeah, one of them is off world. One of them is because they are planet seeders. They're planet creators, planet makers. And for them, that is humans would call it a spiritual purpose. They believe that they are, and I believe this to be true too, that the universe, quote unquote, desires to be born. So then they make bodies for the universe to bore souls into. So they feel there's a quantum field here that's alive and that wants life to be created in the universe, and then they are fulfilling that. And they're the high. So they were, one part was them taking hybrids taking genetics to make some types of species other places, and another is maybe to reintroduce fresh genetics into the grape species, maybe. And but the last was definitely to put hybrids onto the planet Earth, yeah, and to integrate into our own world, into our own society.
One thing that I try to reconcile or just trying to think through is just the fact that, we as human beings, we look at ourselves as being so special of a species, which we are, because we've done amazing things and
Yeah,
we continue
totally.
to do amazing things.
Yeah.
But you would have to assume with billions of other planets that can harbor life out there, that there probably are some other life forms that are just as great as we are. So do you think that hybridization is something that they do in other with other species on other planets as well? Or is it something so extra special about humans that they just focus their time with us?
Yeah, I really do think it's that the planet doesn't really belong to us. And I
Mm.
think that the controller species, the mantis species, is something involved here where they maybe own the planet. I don't think they own it. I don't think there's an ownership like that. I don't think it thinks like that. But so the planet's like kind of a garden. So imagine a scenario where birth and death life cycle stuff is all, yeah, we live in that dimension. Maybe that's how how I can imagine it's being framed. They live in that dimension of birth and death life cycles. And then what does manifestation on the physical dimension mean? But planets that can create multiplicities of that, and so all the variety, and maybe for all we know, that species is actually much involved with creating dinosaurs or something. I don't know, but just an idea here that the planet might be a garden. The planet might be a garden biologically, where they are able to take genetics and mix match and put things in other places, and that's the bigger picture I think is going on. And then the idea of hybrids is them saying, I think we need to fix this. Like
Mm.
maybe they're a little bit more detached, like, hey, we created this and now we kind of got to fix this. And then they respect us. That's the twist, that they're not looking at us as like evil things with which they can do whatever they want to, because they require agreements. And that would make sense if they are aware of the birth and death life cycle, if they're aware of this bigger picture of the human, which is what my book proves. If you believe my story, then you have to sit there and wonder about what's being said, which is that they understood my future. They understood where I was going in my life path and my direction. And NDE research, this is where it all goes. This is what the NDE research is showing us, that lives might be planned, right? There might be a bigger picture thing going on here with individual human lives, and the entities appear to understand that, or seem to operate, or have some kind of intelligence behind that intermingles with it. And that's what my story is. And it intermingles with my life plan, if you will, quote unquote. So I think in the bigger picture, it's something like that they're aware of the birth and death life cycle process, and they respect the soul, but they got to change things up because that's going down a direction that damages everything. I think that they think of the planet as a life, a garden. I think they want it to continue to be a garden that contains lots of life, whales and everything populating and including intelligent entities like humanoids being on the planet for birth and death life cycle purposes. But we got to change it up because this is just taking it down the wrong road. That's, there's a really good, I really want to draw from it. It's a contact event. Linda Moulton Howe had him on, and I can't remember the guy. So maybe someone from your audience remembers. He was a geologist, and he was at Machu Picchu, and he got put into a dimensional portal, and he was gone for a couple of days. And everyone thought, I think the police were involved looking for him. And then the guy comes out, and it's a controlled or mantis type entity that tells him, the humans were an experiment, and we don't know what to do with you. So I think it's something like that. I think it's some bigger picture where we assume they're in control and there's a lot of power, and they actually might be kind of, looking at how we respond to things and knowing that they need to change things up the way that they best know how. And I think humans how we handle things plays into all this. But I feel it's something along those lines that's going on here.
Yeah, I like the seeding idea because I do feel like, and I've said this before, that it just seems for whatever reason that out of all the other nature on this planet and how it seamlessly they meld with each other and benefit the planet, that we are the total opposite. It seems like we're not in tune with this planet and that we actually never really benefit the planet. And so, when I look at it, I actually thought about this. I'm like, okay, well, we look at these things coming here to enlighten us and prepare us to go off planet, when maybe it could be essentially like you just said, where they're like, okay, maybe we did something wrong here, and we're looked at more as like a parasitic sort of species, where it's like, okay, they would like to try to help us develop into something, but our behavior is so parasitic that they wouldn't want us in this current state to be out there in the universe. Because you would assume that if we were able to go off planet right now today and really affect the universe out there, that it would probably not turn out that well if we were left to our own devices.
That's exactly the picture they paint for me. So in my 10th contact event, this gray alien I call the twin, it's two of them, and they're explaining to me that they had a role in creating the human brain, and they made they call it a grabbing function. So it's kind of it's like the centralized ego is what it is, and it helped us move out of our ways back in the ancient days. And now it's kind of, we had the ability to not use it, was how they framed it, but we kind of made our world around it. And it's explained in detail in the book, but that there's something going on here where, something worked previously to help you guys develop. Now we kind of need to fix things. And that's how it's framed. And it's, again, another part to mention, though, it's not like they're saying the human is the defect, because they actually also frame that the human has the full potential to expand. That's how they explain it to me in my book, in the story as well too, in my contact events. So the human has the potential. It just might be that we had, if you just come back to NDE stuff, it's all making sense to me, because what it says is that the spirit is embodying on purpose to develop and to grow. And then they're playing a part in helping with that process. And then the life capacity of the planet is endangered. So then spirits can't go into the body. So we need to fix that environment. We need to fix that role. And so spirits want some of the challenge, I think. I think they want an ego to make the challenge of existence. And then now it's like kind of, it's a cycle where something has gone wrong and we have to fix things. And I think that's how it's framed to me.
Do you think there's any evidence that these extraterrestrials understand the hierarchy here on the planet, and with the few controlling the many? And do you feel like they have, with that being said, do you think that they've actually reached out to governments like some people suggest?
Yeah. I'm actually, I'm pretty big on the idea that they did that. They hinted to me that they interacted with human leadership. And I've done my own research on it. That information's on my website. The Eisenhower meeting is what I focus on. There is some circumstantial evidence that it occurred, and I do lean towards it as a real event that possibly happened. And there's evidence that with some of the UFO sightings that have happened throughout the decades, that insiders, government or military, knew about the UFOs, landing, right? And Westall 66 is my favorite reference. That happened in Australia. It was a landing, UFO landing in the back of a school. And the Air Force, the American Air Force, not even the Australian, American Air Force were there in 20 minutes to clean it all up, to clean up all the witnesses and take all the cameras and everything. And that's this insider information about a landing is very interesting. And so it hints at that there was communication. I lean towards these entities are actually too intense. And there's some evidence. So some of it comes from Linda Moulton Howe, who has some insiders that, one of them took a download and the guy passed out from a download. It was a military guy, like a Navy SEAL guy. And I think the entities are just too strange. And the way I always frame this is that we need to be more touchy-feely, meditative type. And then the government are all A-type personalities, right? To be a government person, you are an A-type personality and you're self-preserving and you're trying to protect. And I'm not of the mind that I can't quite wrap my head around a scenario here where governments are working with, aliens are working with governments. I lean towards more that the possibility that there was an interaction, but then they leave, and I don't know the scale and detail of things. I do hum and haw about it, but I'm of the mind that the stuff that we're seeing now is non-human intelligence desires to get disclosure underway, and it's 2017 to 2027, as John Ramirez said, a 10-year soft disclosure program, and that's exactly what I think is going on. And I think it's because the non-human intelligence want it, and to get whatever's going to happen, they want the public to know at least that they're here. And what actually all that is, I can't speak of it. But I think that they don't involve themselves with human systems, and I don't quite know. I think that they've been abducting people. But if you notice, you don't get a CEO abducted. You get some government people. That's very fascinating. You get some cases of the contactees being government people. And if they actually have interacted with a business person, I know of a story where there was no mind obscured or anything, and the craft landed in the backyard, and the person said, "You have the power to change things." The alien was literally telling the human, "You have the power to change things. You should be doing that." And the person abandoned their career from this landing that happened. So they are aware, but I always feel like there's a detached element on their side, and almost like quote unquote non-interference, but kind of a push, a nudge that they try to do. And I'm not convinced that there's any aliens working with the government as per se, but the idea that maybe there are communication makes a lot of sense to me.
They show their interest in our nuclear facilities, and they focus on military outlets, and as well. Just like I said, I talked about UFOs and airplanes. They seem fascinated with the fact that we are in the air. So it kind of makes you feel like that they are, obviously aware of some of the things that we do, and maybe they're questioning why we do these things. Or the way I looked at it, and kind of where we left off in the last conversation, was like, essentially, how do they perceive humanity as a whole? Like, do they realize that we're being controlled by a certain group because they focus on the military? Or and then if they do they look at what governments and powers that be that war, do they look at them as representatives of all of humanity, or are they able to tell that humanity itself is good-hearted in nature and the positivity, and that the government does not represent humanity as a whole?
Yeah. What if the challenge is greater than that? What if the challenge isn't one of just, if your government just told you, what if for the average human being, there still is a scale of development or evolution that needs to occur? So then there's no win per se. What if there's no win? What if there was no, you need to have the knowledge of them, but I'm still not clear that the average human who focused their life on a career, any career, is able to start driving a consciousness craft. That's what I'm saying. So imagine a scenario where there's no win. Like, I'm not convinced that from everything I know from what a government is. I have an MBA, I studied the economy, and it's much larger than people think it is. There's much more investment from a ton of different sources, whether it's other countries investing in a government, as well as, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who keep an institution running, a government running, never mind what country that is. There's this kind of lofty idea that they can change things for us. And it's not quite like that, actually. The real picture is a lot more intertwined and interconnected. And you actually need a lot of people on board before you make a big choice or a big change. A war is a good example, where when you finally had World War II, you could actually get the entire infrastructure to stop focusing on commercialism and start focusing on building, military equipment. But that took a war, the threat of death, right? It took the threat of World War II coming at your doorstep. Until you have something like that, then you actually have a whole bunch of self-invested people or self-invested countries or self-invested corporations. And I don't live in the world, from all the information that I have, that it's a simple thing. It's a simple solution, such as if the government just led us down the right direction, we could all embrace aliens. Because I'm not clear that the average individual can take it yet. And I think that that's what's at play. And could the government, and then when I have said that before, people say, well, the government should be telling us that. Yeah, but what if they didn't know? What if they were confused also? What this actually ends up being is something that is hard for them to digest? I actually have some people who have some insider information, and one of them actually pointed out that they knew that, they had information about some of the aliens' nature and their place of origin, and they brought physicists in, and the physicists said, no, that's not possible. So I'm not going to study that because I don't want to hear about things that aren't possible. That's the type of thing we're dealing with here. We're dealing with things that are so much bigger than you thought they were. The answers aren't simple. And there might be more than one. When you have an answer, it creates more questions. And, if we're dealing with, as I mentioned, entangled planet, like, imagine that's the scenario we're dealing with. Well, we don't have physics for this stuff yet. So I think that that's the type of stuff that we're dealing with. And the aliens, I do believe, are aware of that. I do believe that's what they are aware of, that this is human consciousness, that there might be a degree which they wanted the government to start saying things. I think there's evidence for that. And I think they wanted that earlier on. But I think the government, hummed and hawed, and when they didn't understand things, they didn't, wholeheartedly jump out and start saying things. They actually pulled back. And I think that's what the picture is that we're in right now. So I lean towards a much more holistic picture that this is human consciousness. The limit was always the consciousness, what we're able to collectively take. And we are still unclear of how much, just the religions is just a good example of this. Never mind the sciences, how much they will be upended from, us just talking about crafts that are alive and how that could even be possible. These things will flip the world that we belong to. And I don't think there's a government system that can handle that. So I think that's the bigger picture that we're up against. And it's a human problem, not a government problem. And that's what I think the aliens are aware of.
Really quickly, as we have about a minute till break, I guess a quick answer. So are you more for a controlled disclosure process that the government would like to have, slow drip, or are you okay with ETs displaying themselves tomorrow, which would be catastrophic disclosure?
I think everything's planned. Or not planned, but everything is much more controlled. And if the entities wanted to, they would have done it a long time ago. So it makes sense to me that's why I always leaned towards this. There's some kind of government interaction going on here. And it does seem that for how extreme this is, for the nature of what this might be dealing with, life after death, paranormal, all dimensions being confirmed and real and validated, would alter every human I know would be affected by that. And I think that's the scale of things we're dealing with. And I think that a human leadership is required for that. I really do. I think human leadership is required to have that conversation, to embrace that reality. And I think that though within the UFO community, oh yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, I'm always big on talking, so just
No,
let
you're
me know.
good. Don't worry. We're gonna come back with Jeff Selver just deeply in the conversation here, guys. We're gonna get ready to go into your questions too on the back half of hour number 2, right here at Spaced Out Radio. Awesome conversation. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right. So we're clear. We got about 5 minutes. If you need to do anything, this is it.
Sure. Great, man. Thanks. Yeah, it's been great, man. Hope I'm not freaking people out. That's the way.
No. we do deep stuff here, and that's exactly why I had to have you back, because we went there the first conversation, but second one is always a little more comfortable, and we can get into different things. So that's what we're doing. They love it, and let's keep it up.
It's great, man. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on, buddy. It's good.
Oh man, anytime, and definitely want to have you back. So we'll have to schedule that as well.
Love it. Yeah. I love it. I love the whole environment you got here. I think it's great. This is actually my favorite style. So yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we got and just like last time, we had a lot of people putting in questions. We got same thing this time, so we'll be jumping right into those.
Yeah, it's great, man. You do a good job, buddy.
Thank you.
Do you get paid for what you do?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's great.
It's some compensation. Yeah, definitely.
That's great. Yeah,
and I have my own channel too, so I run shows over there as well.
Right.
So I'm doing right now probably 5 shows a week.
Oh,
this week it'll be 6. Yeah.
That's great. And so Spaced Out Radio, it's tied to Dave Scott, right? And he's in 100 Mile House. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I'm in Vancouver, so I'm not too far from him.
Ah, okay. Yeah, him, and then our UFO guy Tim James, who's out there in the chat, is from that area too.
Okay, but you're not from there.
No, I'm in California.
You're in California. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of people assume that I'm in Canada as well. Like, no, I'm in the States.
Yeah, it's good.
And we have this. So obviously, because I am in the States, me and Dave, we have this back and forth because he's the Canadian, I'm the American, and we always just kind of poke at each other, based on like he loves hockey. Are you a hockey guy?
When there's playoffs and it's the Canucks, that's about it. Yeah, I'm not soaked into it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, well that's cool because I kind of dig at him on hockey, and I'm like, hockey's not a sport. All sorts of stuff, kind of rile him up. And but I told him I love air hockey. I love air hockey.
Yeah, actually, I love air hockey too. That's funny you say that.
Yeah, exactly. Tim James says 100 mile. And I told him, he said he was because I filled in for him on Halloween on Thursday, and he was going to take his son trick-or-treating. And I told him, well, that should be quick. 100 Mile House only has about 5 or 6 houses, right? So
that's funny. I had a contact event up there.
You had a contact up there?
Yeah, it's it's in the book. It's my 20th. I think it's my 20th contact event. 18, 19. Yeah, it's a 20th contact event. It's in 100 Mile House. Yeah, I was working at a farm out there and had a contact event back in year 2000.
Okay, yeah. So Dave has had some experiences up there. He's a Sasquatch guy. He goes out in the forest and looks for him. I don't know why he goes to look for these things, because I would never want to come face to face with one. But he's also had extraterrestrial experiences out there too. Yeah,
the UFO BC database has a plethora of sightings in the 100 Mile House area. That's right, and some contact events out there for other people.
And that is funny that you use the word plethora, because he says that at least 4 times a show, maybe 5.
Yeah, I think I just picked it up because I don't use that word too often, so that's interesting. I read it.
Dave, you got to watch this show, buddy. You got to watch this show.
Oh, John. Hey, John. I drove through 100 Mile House once. Good thing I didn't blink. Yeah, right. Yeah, you got it.
That's what I hear. Aloha, Dave. Thanks for your awesome support of Spaced Out Radio, says Jeff.
Thank you.
This has been a fabulous conversation. Loved every minute of it. Please come back on SOR when it's
thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me so much. Yeah, very grateful.
I love it. Like I say, the motto of this show is conversations that move the needle, right? And these are all important conversations, and I think they do that. And that's why people like yourself where you can really engage in these sort of it takes two to tango, right?
Yeah, it
So
does. Yeah, and
yeah,
your questions
so
are bang on, Rob. That's why I love being on here with you. Yeah, you got it.
appreciate it. And let's see. Yeah, Tim James. We have this breakfast for dinner thing that goes around because Dave, for whatever reason, doesn't think you can eat breakfast for dinner. What do you think about that? Do you think you can have breakfast for dinner?
Yeah, you can have eggs. You can have eggs for dinner, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing wrong with
Okay.
eggs for dinner. Yeah.
Just want to make sure because everybody else agrees, but he's like the minority or the only one that thinks you can't have breakfast for dinner. So I hope, clip this, guys, and send this to Dave for sure.
I mean, there might be some limits. I don't think you could have cereal for dinner, but I mean, it's all whatever people desire, I guess. I can't complain. So
Yeah. We give them a tough time about that, as we got about 20 seconds left here, and questions are coming up, guys. Here we go. 10 seconds. All right, we're on. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour 1.5. We're going to get ready to get into your questions next, so don't go anywhere. Back with our guest, Jeff Selver. We've been having an awesome conversation tonight. If you missed any of it, hop in the archive, youtube.com/@spacedoutradio. Here we go. We're going to get right into the conversation here. We have a lot of questions. First one up is from Sierra saying, what do you mean by power up your genetics?
I think I said that in context to the Rising. So they did this experiment with me, and it was a consciousness experiment. Dr. Biology of Belief. Can't remember the guy's name, the doctor. He wrote the book Biology of Belief. And yeah, consciousness is intertwined with your DNA. And it seems the aliens know that kind of stuff. And so they did this consciousness experiment on me. My DNA was powered up. So what I mean by that is I felt different. My body healed faster at that time. And I was sensitive to impurities, like, processed foods. And at that time, I wasn't aware of it. They were taking my DNA. So I was having contact events that were genetic focused. And so my DNA was altered from that, from the consciousness experiment they had done with me.
All right. We have Queen Peachy King D saying, Emerald Lake in Colorado is where a golden city is going to land. Do you know anything about this?
No, I don't know anything about that.
All right.
Yeah.
And you were talking about simulations earlier, and Sierra wants to know, are other planets also simulations?
Well, I don't have any answers to that, but the way I assume that the universe itself is a simulation. So I think if you have your frame of reference creating a simulation, I assume you go to this other realm or planet and you're still creating a simulation. That's the mind is it's a matrix creator. That's how I understand it. And so planets, it's all of a frame of reference that we are creating a simulation with our minds. And that's how I understand that.
All right. And then we have, let's see, Resonant, who is asking, why am I only conscious of myself? Are other people a simulation?
Unless there's a collective consciousness going on here too. So you're only conscious of yourself because you have a history of being repeatedly in a meat sack in the body, in the thing that you are, and you have been doing that for a long time. And so you have an experience of individuation, and you have a history of imprints from other lives previously lived. And so you have the illusion that you're conscious of yourself, but you've been living in that illusion for a long time. So you're convinced of the illusion. And yes, other people are doing the same thing you're doing, and your illusion is the simulation. So that's how I understand that as a personal experience for myself. So my emotions, my struggles are all part of my illusion. And they're part of the matrix creator of my brain. My emotional center creates these, and my emotions are part of the simulation. My brain is part of the simulation. So the part of you that's not is the part of you that I talked about is outside of space and time, and that's the part of you that's the real generator. And that's our goal, is to put that part of us into our physical existence in the present.
All right, awesome. We have John Condor asking, if you don't encounter your ET family for a long time, do you ever find yourself blaming yourself and asking what you might be doing wrong, or did I offend them somehow? Thanks.
No. And the biggest human game is to self-blame, and to imagine that there are something that you did wrong. And that we're a victim to that. So I'm a victim to myself. I did something wrong. And no, you can't live in a space where you feel that way about yourself. It doesn't help anything. And even if you did, imagine a scenario where you took that on, well, then you'd be even more unlikely to, interact with something. If you're talking about, if you're saying an alien family, then you're talking about something higher, on a higher dimension, then you'd still be unlikely to interact with them. So the idea is that you need to just be happy, live out your life, and focus on what creates your divinity, what creates your unity, what creates your connection, and to live into that space. And when the time is right, if something as such is part of your plan, then that would happen then. But you gotta live life. Gotta live life unattached to those types of outcomes.
All right. Cielo Azul is asking, what does he think about Chris Bledsoe?
Yeah, I met Chris. Yeah. Everything is bang on for me with him. Everything is matching with my personal experience. So I'm pretty certain he's legit. Yeah, he's the legit thing. Totally.
All right. Just so happens T-Bone is asking Jeff's opinion of Billy Myers.
Billy Myers. No comment. I don't know. I should say that, but because then it sounds like you're making a comment by saying no comment. Don't. I don't know what to think. Let's put it that way. I'll say that. Yeah.
That works. Yeah. T-Bone is asking if Jeff is familiar with Flight 21 near 100 Mile House.
No, and I would wish you would let me know what that means. Flight 21. I can't think of what that would mean.
All right. And let's see. Sierra is asking, could you talk more about proving your own power?
Now, is that something that she's asking of me to do, or is that something with which I said and she was responding to? I don't know.
I think it was something you said, I think.
Yeah, proving your own power. I can't think of what that might be referring to. I don't know if it's something she's asking of me to do. But I don't know how to respond to the question, actually, without having more context.
She has another question that we'll ask right here, which is, what did you get out of the exchange for being in the hybrid program? How did you agree to the program?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what did I get out of the exchange? So it was an agreement I made with gray aliens to discover my soul. So what is my soul? My soul is the higher self. It's the one that makes the choice to birth me into the physical realm, that plans my life. So yeah, I saw my higher self, and that's the whole gist of my first contact event, is I saw the afterlife on an alien spacecraft. And I know that sounds pretty wild. We have both Ross Coulthart and Bob Bigelow now outright mentioning that, people can see, aliens in the afterlife, and that there's some kind of connection here between, non-human intelligence and the afterlife. And that they were saying those words after I had already gone public with it. My first time I ever went public was July 5th, 2020. And that was the first contact event where I saw the afterlife on an alien spacecraft. So that is exactly what happened. And to do something like that is a pretty it's something that will affect the rest of your life. And it gives me excessive past life awareness. I don't really like talking about it too much until I can really present that information, because it just sounds so hokey when you say it. But I've proven these things to myself, and I have some interesting stories to tell about that. And the other is the higher self. So I have what I feel is a connection to my own higher self. Those are all very hokey for other people, but it's privately, it's my personal power. And then those things help me vision. They help me focus on my ability to do things that I do in my own world. So I manipulate the universe through visioning. I know that sounds hokey also, but these are all they're proven for me and true for me. And so all those kind of quote unquote, consciousness extensions, consciousness abilities comes out of my interactions with the entities. And so that is technically what I actually was, the exchange. And then the result was them taking my genetics. Now, how did I agree to the program? I didn't actually agree to it. It was a part of the package and I wasn't aware of it. It's part of my book that is part of the dynamic that they did that to me, and it was a surprise. So I didn't know that that's where it would end up going. It's a shocker, and most humans would not like it. And then we talked earlier about things they told me versus things I experienced. Mm-hmm. And when the hybrid program was done, and I was actually fighting with the entities at that point, so I didn't want them in my life anymore, and I was fighting with them. And they ended up showing me my higher self, this timeline I agreed to with them to show to discover my soul with them. And they proved it to me that my higher self was involved in that choice. So it's not like I made the choice, but another part of me wanted me to interact with them because it knew I would evolve. So my higher self wanted me to interact with the entities, knowing that I would evolve, and then agreed to the genetics part. And that's a really hard thing to swallow when you're 20 and 21 at the time. All these years later, it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Because then they actually did stop after that. And you're like, okay, it sucked while I was going through it. But in the end, it's accurate. It's pretty real. And then it gives me a link to that part of myself. And so it's part of the book. It's part of the story of how a human handles that reality of being a part of the hybrid program and what that does to him. And then how he comes to terms with it and accepts it, actually.
All right. And T-Bone is asking, as far as contact goes, is blood type a factor?
I've heard there is. I've heard Rh negative is common, but not exclusive. So that's important to know. It's a correlation, and I know I can't remember the Stoner, Denise Stoner, and Kathleen Martin did that research, and yes, they did find Rh negative to be much more common than it is in the population. And if I can recall, it's about 30%. So the question was why, and I don't know that we have any actual science or studies in the experiencer realm about the why to that, and I don't know the why to that either. And I don't even know my own blood type, unfortunately. It costs money to do that kind of stuff here in Canada. So so apparently there is, but I don't have any more information behind that.
All right. And Mike Rivers is asking, are you suggesting that we are a long-term experiment? I didn't sign up to play lab rat.
Well, no, I don't think that we're an experiment. I don't think the human species is an experiment. I think that it's more like plants, like gardeners. I think it's more like that. Like they may have planted the seeds and then let it do its own thing. I think it's more like that. And I think the birth and death life cycle is a part of that process. And then, they may have, I think that they involved themselves to nudge here and there. I do believe that. I believe that over the centuries and maybe the millennia, they've been involving themselves here and there. And I mean that in nudging. I don't believe in any large involvement from non-human intelligence in human affairs. But I do think they probably interjected to help evolve and to help grow and to push us. So then we create a society, and then souls are coming in and they're embodying, and it's just growth. It's like a plant, it's like a garden, and then then it's just doing its own thing, and souls are getting their own rewards or own growth out of it. I do believe it to be something like that.
All right. Polly Rodderman asking, why do you think you were chosen?
So I have the answer to that, and it's layered. The simplest answer I can give is everything I say is just like gonna blow people's brains. So I can't get away from it. So I was in the Holocaust in the last life, and I know that having past life awareness is a part of this picture, and I've proven it to myself. And then something happened, some kind of damage to the ethereal body. And when I passed on, the entities offered themselves to help, and my higher self was involved and said, "Yes, let's do that. It'll help him. It'll help him rectify." And they have some kind of like incarnation designing technology. These entities, man, it's so it's so far up or so beyond us, and so they have abilities to rectify damaged souls, damaged ethereal bodies. And there's something along those lines going on here. And so my higher self agreed, and I think it's a big picture. I think they knew some things about what would be in my plan. So there's a life plan thing going on here, and then some things in that life plan were desirable to them. And so me having a guru, yet seeing the afterlife in my first contact event are linked to me. They're linked. I couldn't have understood the afterlife stuff if I didn't have a guru help me get into those dimensions or realms, which is what the meditations do. Vedic meditations take me to that space. So they're linked. And I just couldn't have handled that type of experiment unless I had a way of rectifying, the kind of insanity of the whole experience, and finding a way to get closer to your consciousness. So those two things are linked to me, and that was part of my life plan. That's how I see it in my own world. And the entities knew that. So then there was a whole bigger picture thing that they wanted to, that they knew that they could do. And so it sounds crazy, but for me, that's exactly where all this goes.
Okay. All right. We got T-Bone asking, Jeff, we have so many great UFO sightings in Canada. Could you pick your favorite if possible?
Oh yeah, we do, don't we? We do. I agree with that. Duncan is a wacky one. Duncan 19, I can remember, is it early 80s? And it's the nurse who is she's in Duncan Hospital, Duncan, BC, on Vancouver Island. And there's a blinds closed, and she opens the blinds and she looks out, and there's a craft floating. I guess it must be like 30 or 40 feet from the window. And it's a clear glass ball, and she sees two humanoids inside. So she's witnessing aliens on the craft, and she's freaking out. And I guess she's stunned. The other nurse sees her stunned and walks over. And at this point, the craft had already concealed itself and turned into a red orb. And so they're now watching a red orb float up. So she was the only one to witness that. At first, the craft was just a metal craft with a glass ball, and you could see inside and see two humanoids. And apparently they saw her. They were trying to fix a craft or something, or doing something. And then one looked, and when they looked, they turned the craft into a red orb. And then the red orb floated, and then other people in the area saw it later. So as if the craft had been floating around the area of Duncan. And so it had been witnessed by multiple people, plus the nurse seeing the inside, plus the other nurses seeing the craft as well too, as a red orb. Very fascinating case. It made international headlines, and I think we commemorated it with a stamp recently here in Canada. So that's a very, very fascinating one. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Let me see. Okay. Andromedan's asking, what do the Greys think of the afterlife? Do they have an afterlife, or are they more open to the multiverse?
So I experienced the Greys. I witnessed them in the afterlife. So that dimensional realm for us is something they have no problems being in. So now I'm convinced there's something bigger picture going on here about the universe. And I think this is my picture that I understand. Space is not space. Space is actually is filled with multiple dimensional entities. So it's kind of like where you go in the afterlife, and you're not on Earth, but you're in the thinner dimensions in space. And then that's kind of where they're interacting. They're interacting in those realms, in those dimensions. I think something like that's going on here. And the entities that I'm aware of they are consciously involved in the birth and death life cycle. I actually still think they use bodies to some degree and they inhabit bodies, but everything's conscious. I think they're very aware of what entity is going into that body next. And they make bodies consciously. They did show that to me. So they're as if they would make a bodies for their society to behave, to do certain things. And then they didn't explain to me that that would be conscious, the soul going in, but I saw my entity move her energy out into another body and put it into a different entity. So they can just move the soul around, and that's not a problem for them. So I think that they've kind of mastered this birth and death life cycle stuff. I think they operate in those realms, and that's the bigger picture. Are they more open to a multiverse? And I think that they are connected to sure, it could be called a multiverse. I'm convinced of that too. And that's part of the Earth connection going on here, that there's some kind of other Earth realm thing that they're linked to. And so it's so big picture and it's so complex, but those are my general understanding about what I think is going on with the Greys.
All right. And Drew Banky is asking, and I had to put this in the chat here. Drew Banky is asking, any connections to the sun with ET you're in contact with?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing they showed me with the physical sun. No.
All right. And I had, let's see. I had another good one here. Let's see here. Yeah, because we won't be able to get to all of them, so I'm going to pick one out of this group here. Okay, Lunaco asking, any correlation between third world rural regions experiencing more paranormal alien activity? Is that maybe why they don't develop to have them as alien grounds to abduct humans?
Any correlation between third world rural regions? I wish I had an example of what she means. Experiencing more paranormal alien activity. I can't think of what
like Brazil, like the fact that they have so much contact out in South America.
Right. So the one thing I am aware of is the phenomenon is geographically focused. And so that makes sense if we're dealing with some kind of alternate Earth or some kind of entangled Earth. There's portals or something. I know it just sounds so crazy, but portals that are linked geographically to certain areas, which is why you go heavy into this research, whether it's abductions or nuts and bolts crafts, you get similarities in geographical areas. Same with cryptoids, same with hauntings. You get a weird paranormal, a paranormal alien contact cryptoid thing going on that's very geographically focused. So that's the best I can connect with. That maybe we're dealing with electromagnetic fields here and portals, and then things open up in certain geographical areas, and then you have certain types of activity that originates in that area. That's my grander picture about what I think is going on. And doing all my research in Canada, there definitely appears to be geographical centered focused areas, not just flaps, UFO flaps, but cryptoids will appear in the same types of areas that you'll have certain types of sightings. So.
All right, we got 45 seconds for this next question, which is Eric Dion Viglione asking, could shamans or yoga masters operate a consciousness craft?
I think that's the idea. Yeah, I think the entities, I heard one contactee be told that they're cosmic shamans. Yeah, I think going down that avenue is the avenue that humanity as a whole will have to go soon. We all have to become shamans. We also become yoga masters. Yeah.
All right, and about 15-20 seconds, where can they find you?
Jeff Selver at jeffselver.com. JEFFSELVER.com.
All right, awesome, guys. I appreciate you, Jeff. We're going to be in contact. You guys don't go anywhere as we get ready to go into the third and final hour of the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. And once again, Jeff, thanks for coming in. You were great. Awesome conversation. I knew it would be. And we'll set up the next day because we got to do that.
Yeah, you got it, Rob. I totally love it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. All right. Take care, Jeff.
You got it.
All right, everybody. That was Jeff Selver. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this break.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the
You're
needle.
listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, clear. See you guys after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Yes. Welcome back, everyone, to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. After hour number 3, we're going to be getting into some Steve Stockton Missing Person Mysteries, and then joined by Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. Awesome hour. Don't go anywhere. We're going back to radio. 10 seconds here. All right, everyone, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're in the third and final hour. It's going to be an awesome hour as we go ahead and get ready to get into some Steve Stockton Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries, and then also the After Hours wrap up with our guy Drew Banky. Awesome hour. Don't you go anywhere. Let's get ready to jump into the show. But hey, if you're a space traveler, which I know you are, don't forget you can be a space traveler in the club over at our Patreon. $5 buckaroonies a month is all it takes as we go ahead and get ready to jump into Steve Stockton Missing Person Mysteries. Once again, so awesome that Steve is a part of the After Hours radio show. Here we go. We're jumping right into it.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. Dogman or Unknown Cryptid Encounter. My name's John, and I spent much of my childhood with my father, who taught me how to hunt and fish. We had land in Franklin County, which is the outskirts of Laurel, Indiana. My father built our home, and it was located just about 20 yards from the deep woods off Bulltown Road, which was named that because when the farmers would take their cattle to or from the market, that's the path they would travel. That's now our road. We fished for everything from bluegill to trout to bass, and the most fun, the infamous blue, channel, and flathead catfish. Hunting was no different, from squirrel, rabbits, to deer. My dad also showed me how to noodle for snapping turtles, although I never really had the nerve for that. My best times were with him showing me what ginseng, bloodroot, and rhubarb all looked like. I would go on those adventures, although not having much luck finding them as I did the morel mushrooms. I've spent more days and nights in the woods, at riverbanks and lakes than I had ever had or wanted to in some city setting, and these places were my comfort zones, where I felt at peace, where I truly felt alive and closest to my creator, and never, ever had I experienced anything like what I had in this January of 2010. It was early when I got up and ready to head out squirrel hunting off some property over by my uncle's house, which is really the same romping grounds I ran with when I was just a kid, out hunting with my pop. I was going to use my .22 Marlin, which is a good rifle with a Casco scope, instead of a shotgun, because to me, there was nothing worse than picking out buckshot when you're trying to enjoy a hot plate of fried mushrooms and biscuits with squirrel gravy. I got out in the general area of where I wanted to begin my hunt and found a nice hickory to lean up against. And just as I usually do, I leaned back, got really comfortable, and began to rest my eyes. Catch a nap, I figured really quick, before I get serious with squirrel hunting. So I listened for about 5 minutes to see if I heard them cut in this direction, or that which a squirrel on a cut is what we call them chewing and breaking open hickory and walnut. Just as my usual routine, I fell asleep. I remember when I woke, it was as if I was startled awake, like if someone had clapped loudly to get your attention next to your face. I opened my eyes and was wondering, did I actually hear that, or was that just in my head? I looked up and straight ahead of me and saw something duck down behind a bramble bush that was about 6 to 7 feet tall and about 50 yards out from me. Again, I wondered, am I seeing things as well as hearing them? Now, I grew up hearing aunts and uncles, cousins, and other trusted people telling stories of UFOs. No close encounters, just lights in the sky. And as for Bigfoot, Harry and the Hendersons came out when I was 9 in 1987, and it was something I thought, sure, I can bite on that. This is me as a child thinking the Earth was much bigger than it actually is. The endless redwood forest and the Amazon with Tarzan and the tribes that have never seen civilized man, that's where these creatures roamed. But what I saw, this was something out of a Hollywood movie. I couldn't see very well still. The sun hadn't quite came up over the horizon. As for everything going silent, I was used to that because the birds were barely even awake at this hour. I took my gun and thinking, I'm about to catch someone trespassing on the land. I moved the scope up to my left eye and began to scan the width of the briar bush, which was about 10 to 15 feet, followed by a huge oak tree that ran parallel with the bush. I couldn't make anything out. It all blended in, until I made out a sharply pointed ear. At first, I thought it was a bobcat because of the tassel of hair that was protruding out of the ear. But as my eyes finally focused in more and trying to decipher what was just bush and leaves to what was hair and facial features, when I saw an eye on the right side of his face looking at me, it registered to me there's no branches or limbs for any animal such as a bobcat or coyote to be able to appear that's positioning itself upright, and which I saw when I first opened my eyes. I know the moment when I was looking at something I'd never seen before, because it felt like a bucket of cold water had been dumped over my head, and almost simultaneously, my teeth began to chatter. At that moment, I knew what I was looking at, and it was most definitely looking at me, had been standing upright. I lowered my rifle because there was no way on God's green earth that I was going to try to fire on this animal. For lack of anything I'd ever seen before, an upright canine. I didn't turn my back on him, but I slowly stood up. I was about maybe 150 yards into the woods. My mind was clear and focused, though. Just don't turn your back. And I walked slowly back to the road and my car. It never showed itself fully, and I'm glad. Since this has happened, I can't bring myself to hike in parks alone. I don't go fishing at night if the area is secluded, and those are just the long-lasting effects. I was about 32 when this happened, so it's been 10 years. I would damn near have panic attacks taking out the garbage. What I grew up loving to do with my father was now something I'm scared to do by myself. My dad had passed away in 1999 to a drunk driver, and this encounter actually happened about 20 days after I lost my mom in 2010 to cancer. So I never had the opportunity for the two people I've been raised by out in the middle of the sticks for their theory on this. I do remember my father telling me one night he went out to the woodshed to grab a wheelbarrow load of firewood for the stove. I was young, so I didn't ask him to elaborate, but he said when he had reached the shed, he heard a growl that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up, put him in an utter rush to get back into the house. All he explained other than that was it sure wasn't a bobcat or a coyote. Looking back, I wish I would have pressed for more, because this man noodle snapping turtles and was the only one the old bull of grandpas would respect. In closing, I've only heard of Dogman in about the last 5 years. I haven't shared my story, but maybe with 5 people, and I'll only ever say I saw something in the woods that I can't explain. Because that sounds much more rational than, you guys, I saw a werewolf. But I know I've come about as far as I can to recover from this encounter. With stories of aliens, Bigfoot, Dogman, and missing people, as well as a plethora of other cryptids I've not mentioned. But I can tell you now as I write, if you were to tell me you've seen something in the woods, describe it, can't explain it, I believe you. Because I've had my encounter too. Signed, John. Creature in the woods. This only happened several days ago, so my mind is still pondering what happened. My friend and I are avid outdoorsmen, primitive camping, hiking, etc., etc. There's this local county park with a weird, spooky history. Lots of people with odd sightings, menacing experiences, reportedly witchcraft. You get the idea. Well, we were hiking there and decided to follow a couple of game trails. We wanted to get away from the casual hikers and really explore the more unexplored parts of the forest. We'd gone several miles in and came to an area with a lower bush line, so our visibility was pretty good. All of a sudden, a storm of acorns erupted around us, with no wind to speak of. After this incident occurred, we had this overwhelming sense of being watched. We'd gone another several hundred yards when my friend calls out, "What is that?" And when I look towards what he's pointing at, we see this dark humanoid shape standing by a tree. It was around 4 feet tall, dark brown to black in color, and seemed to get highly agitated when I took notice of it. The only way to describe its movement was that it was lightly bouncing back and forth, giving off an aggressive vibe. Instinctively, we both pulled out our knives. My friend also pulled out his axe, and we felt combat was inevitable. It kept watching us, emanating this aggressive energy. For some reason, we decided to move towards it. What happened next, I cannot explain. It simply disappeared. Once we both saw it disappear, we made a beeline to the tree it was at. We can be stupid brave. And there was no sign or sound of anything having been there. We look around and nothing. There was no way for it to have gotten away without making a sign or even making noise, as the brush wouldn't have allowed that. Sheathing our weapons, we stood there dumbstruck, not sure what had just happened. Thank you, Anonymous.
All right, and that is Steve Stockton, Tales Untold, Missing Persons Mysteries. Shout out to Steve Stockton. Always awesome that he's a part of the After Hours radio show. Totally appreciate his contribution. And we're going to go ahead and jump into the After Hours wrap-up, if you guys are ready for that, with our guy, Drew Benke. Here we go.
You're an irredeemable monster! Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly!
Kick him in the nard! He doesn't have nard! Do it! That man's got nard! You're a monster!
All right, the After Hours wrap-up. Joining us is our guy, Drew Benke. How you doing, man?
How's it going, man? What a interview, right?
Yikes, right?
Felt like I was looking in the mirror the whole time.
That's what I'm talking about. So this is going to be awesome. This is going to be an awesome wrap-up. So what resonated to you during this interview?
All of it. All of it. He really caught my attention in the middle. He's talking about having a vision of this someone in the middle of the country having a well and all that stuff. It's like it's tying into my vision. I have a well, and I'm kind of in the middle of the country, and I had similar messages, and then we spoke about them in past interviews about having this message that something was gonna happen. There was gonna be some type of event, and we're gonna, I think you mentioned or prelude something to it during the interview about the government being restructured, or the government not being able to withstand the truth or the reality of this ET contact, having a city, a designated city in a certain spot of on this planet. And I've had visions of 5 different cities being on this planet, and one of it being here in Colorado, southern Colorado, and mainly because it's elevated. We're at 8,000 feet, plus in this, it's elevated flat desert floor. It's kind of, it messes with you because it's all flat, but we are over 8,000 feet up in, elevation where we're at right now. We're on an elevated valley, and then we have mountains that go up to 14,000 foot plus that surrounds us. But that's one of the, I I would go as far to say that he had the shaman initiation vision, like, because that division, and I wish I could have jumped in there and asked him some very specific questions, but it sounds like what I've talked about before in interviews and conversations with you, Rob, is this vision that is shared by several people. Some of the details may vary back and forth, but the meat and potatoes behind it is something big's about to happen. Everybody get ready for it. It's bigger than what you could even fathom or anyone could really even articulate with words, and whether it be, flooding, earthquakes, mass ET contact, or all at the same time. There's a recurring dreams and visions that people have, and it seems like he would fall into that category. And at the end, and when he's talking about shamans and stuff, yeah, I wish I could have jumped in there and asked him some specific questions, because I really believe that's probably the set of visions that he was having, and it's ones that go back in history a long time that people have, and it's an initiation into shamanism, or being basically one foot on each side, being a person like that. And that's these series of visions or dreams that people tend to have.
Yeah. Middle America and the alien plan. The book is called The Rising, and the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth, which you did talk about somewhere in Middle America. And yeah, those things do line up. It's crazy how that is as well. Um, and yeah, I gotta say, we when I interviewed him the first time, I don't really like to call them interviews. I like to call them conversations that move the needle. And with the conversation that we had, I think, kind of gave some outlooks or perspectives, or different perspectives, on what the agenda is for these ETs. That's why it's so awesome to talk to different people, because different people have different perspectives. Then you take all those perspectives and you pick out, it gives you an idea. You're able to formulate what it is, or that we might be dealing with. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some of the things that we touched, I think, I have questions about as well, right? But I don't disagree with the things that he said, but I would definitely, I don't know the love and light part of it. I think there are definitely other ways to also look at it, because there has to, with all the different species that are involved with this, and maybe that's what it is. When you have a specific interaction with a certain group, like the Greys in this instance, he had like 26 Gray contacts. Maybe it's the Greys. The Greys are the ones that are the good guys, but there's definitely other ones out there.
But what if, let's just say, what if a byproduct of conscious evolution is moving past a point where there is none of that, and that's what the message is. That's what we're being told in these visions. And I've had very similar encounters to him. And what we're being told is a byproduct of a higher consciousness, a higher vibration, that we vibrate out of those lower vibration things, that we see a separation in each other. Because if I know that if like my understanding is everything around me is a part of me, so how can I, it's that when you, to get to that point, I can't be mad at anybody. I can't fight anybody. I don't even own, being a military veteran, I don't own guns, because I trust in full faith of something higher. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like it's
I
and
get it.
what if a byproduct of a higher consciousness is there is no hierarchy. There is no, because you're seeing a part of yourself and you know that full well, you know, and I think that's the message that keeps coming to me. And I think that's, you know, we keep having these guests on here that's had, it's very clear to me that he's had bona fide contact and been in contact with something. It's something of a higher intelligence, whatever it is, I don't know. But it's very, very clear to me just some of the things he says. And the message when you get to that point is you've moved past it. There's got to be a everything has a beginning and end, and even hatred, weapons, defense, you know, and fighting, because there's a point where you understand oneness of all, and that means that I can't be mad at anything now because
I,
I see everything as a part of me.
I hear that perspective. That makes sense. I hear that, and that's a great way to look at it. But the only, the thing that makes me look or think any other way is that there's too many other, and not just when we talk about consciousness, but just different. There's always opposing things within the universe. Like you have fire and ice. You have uh, what is that? Electrons, the electrons, and what's the other one? Neutrons and electrons. So you
Electrons,
have,
neutrons, yeah.
yeah. So you
I
have the
think yeah.
opposites of a lot of different things, and so those examples, so there isn't just a one way. You would think based on other things out, the other examples out in the universe, there's definitely a positive and negative reaction, and because that exists, then the one idea thought process where there is no opposing view of good versus evil, it just doesn't seem like it would it would seem like there has to be an opposing view to pretty much everything, and those seem to be the laws of the universe. So protons and neutrons, there you go. Dr. Love, that's what I meant to say. Protons and neutrons, right?
And
So
are we talking about the universe, or are we talking about all of creation?
we're talking
Because
about,
that's two different things.
well, when we talk about all of creation, then everything that we're talking about exists within that, because the creation is at the top. The all of everything is at the top, but all these examples exist beneath that. So that's what I'm saying. So within the universe, if we start at the source power or the highest level, all these opposing examples are beneath that. So if there's so many different examples of opposing things, then there has to be an opposing view to positivity. It's negativity. And
I don't
so
see it like that though. But I see at some point that there is no back and forth. Like I go back I keep going back to oneness. How can there be opposing things when oneness is when oneness consciousness is not just a theory, it is a cellular understanding. For me, oneness consciousness is a cellular understanding. It's not a theory. I I believe in it. I've experienced it in so many different ways, through near death experience, through Sundance, through psychedelics, through dream state. You know, the list goes on and on and on. And for me, it's the truth. So I can't. I see everything. Everything that I see around me is a part of me, and I'm a part of it because I I I live one consciousness. Like
I think that's a cool, hopeful place for all of existence to go. Like, I understand what you're saying, and that's within you, but there still are examples of the opposite of you, or your thought process out in the universe. And so is that something that could ever be changed or corrected on a complete scale, where everything is this oneness that is positively thinking, and we get rid of the opposite perspective? I just don't think that that's possible, because there's too many examples just in nature of opposites. And it's like,
Yeah,
yin
it's
and
a.
yang is like the almost the rule of the universe or the law of the universe.
I don't think it's the rule. I don't think it's the rule of the universe. I think it's the rule of our existence here. Like I said before, I think it's our. I think, and the guest was preluding to this. I think I wish he would have delved more into it in more detail, but he was talking about we're about to experience a whole nother understanding. And most people are not ready for that because they think that, you know, black and
We'll
white is
continue the
a
thought
truth.
process right after this break. You guys don't go anywhere. After hours wrap up with Drew Banky. We're going to be getting into the yin and yang. Is there yin and yang, or can the yin and yang come together to be this oneness? I don't know. We'll look into this and more as we get ready to go to radio break and come back right here on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours radio show. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, clear. Yeah, this is a good thing to dive into because, you know, I understand what you're saying. And yes, it's a true statement what you're saying.
And I
But
understand what you're saying, but but there's a point where, and this has been told to me as well, like when I was given all these visions back in 18, 19, 20, and before I really started talking hardcore about them and really digging into them, I was told it's going to be hard for people to really wrap their heads around because they're going to have to let go of things that they never thought they would have to let go of, you know. And it's it, I believe that the point of when you let go of this, when you let go of the grasp of duality, because that's ultimately what it is. It's a lesson in duality. We're living through a lesson in duality. Once we learn that lesson, we move past duality and move into a oneness, because in understanding oneness, there is no room for duality. How can there be? The experience, there's a different experience that happens now. Duality is past. And I think once you learn the lesson of duality, that's when we start stepping into interstellar travel.
yeah, but there's a beginning and an end that's referenced within the universe. That's there's a beginning and the end. The only thing that I could give an example of that doesn't have an opposite, but maybe it does, and we probably just haven't figured it out yet, is the fact that we look at space as being this infinite thing that doesn't have an end. But given the examples of everything else within the universe, there's likely opposition to that. So there's likely that space is not actually infinite, that there is an end, because there are opposites, there, and it's just the rule. There's birth and there's death within the celestial bodies. Supernova stars are born and then they die. Suns are born and then they die. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's too many examples of cause and effect, right? And with that being said, I don't know if there is any example of a oneness. The only constant maybe is the fact that energy is a constant, and it doesn't die, right? Energy doesn't die; it just transfers or goes somewhere else. So maybe that's the only example. But just thinking logically, just trying to think of other examples of a oneness that exists within the universe. It seems like a great place to a great goal to get to, if it's possible. I think even within a person who is pure in their soul and just a genuine, really nice person, there's still opposite thing there. You don't completely live your life that way. There's still some things that you do, even if you're as pure as you want to be, that go against the natural nature of yourself. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't know, is there a way to really get to 100% purity? Or I think it's a good goal to shoot to, but I don't know if it's possible because we don't really have examples.
But everything happens for a reason. Like wherever you're at in the moment is where you're supposed to be at. Whatever happens to you in the moment, good, bad, horrible, blessed, it's supposed to happen to you in that moment. That's the understanding of oneness. Like you're looking at oneness in a different way. The understanding of oneness consciousness is fully embodying, not a theory, Rob. I'm talking like it's on a different level. Like that your child, that you love your child and your child loves you. It's a deep knowing. This is same knowing that goes with knowing that everything is you around you. Even your mistakes are meant to happen. Even your mistakes, even bumping into a coffee table, walking through the kitchen, that is meant to happen. And that's to go that to believe that. I mean, it's I don't know how to explain it. But near death experiences and deep ceremonial experiences, the message keeps coming across, like that people that come out of these near death experiences, deep spiritual experiences, he does meditation, got a guru, this, that, and the other. Like he's tapping into the same type of realms that you would in a psychedelic ceremony or a Sundance ceremony, that where you with the fast and all that.
You ready to come back? We got 15 seconds. So yeah, we could continue this and then talk about some other things within the thing. 5 seconds. Here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2.5. In the home stretch, back into the show. Getting ready to bring it home with our guy, Drew Banky, here with the After Hours wrap-up, kind of going over the interview today. Give us some really good points and perspectives. However, we're in a lock right now as we go ahead and get ready to get into this, guys. Don't forget, if you're on social media at Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio Show, don't forget to hit the little heart button. Let us know you like the show as we get back into it. So we were kind of ending off there as we talked through the break about the opposites. And I just feel like there's opposing values for each, for everything in the universe. And then I talked about energy maybe being the one constant, but then I thought about it, was like, wait, positive, negative energy. Okay, right there. So that takes that off the table. Energy is our being. Energy is the source. And there is an opposing value to positive energy, which we know. And I don't know if that can ever be reconciled into just positive energy, because then it would be called something else. So there's still an opposing value, and I don't know if we can, as beings, achieve this this level of consciousness where we don't still in somewhere have an opposing value to. You might be the positive energy, but there's got to be a negative energy to your counterpart out there somewhere in the universe. So that's kind of where we left off. Did you have anything you wanted to add to it?
No, not to that. I mean, I've spoke my piece on that several times. Just it's just what I said. The duality I believe, ends at one point when the understanding of oneness consciousness becomes a cellular understanding and not a theory. And that's something that I can scream from the top of the mountains, but until you feel it, like it's something that you can't really articulate. And I think there's a reason for that. It's an experiential understanding that when people get to that, and it's interpreted different ways, but I think the basis behind it is just that. There's the understanding of oneness conscious, everything around you being a part of you. How can duality be anywhere in that? And I think that's the gateway for interstellar travel. Like it's easier to telepathically communicate. It's easier for telekinesis. And Rob, I wanted to point out synchronicities. I love synchronicities. I think what's the ticker number for guest mentioning, showing, displaying abilities? How many guests in a row? I think we're up to like 3 or 4 guests in a row where they've mentioned, including myself, talk about it's time to start showing your abilities. Like it's one thing to talk about, okay, I had contact, it's vibrational, this, that, and the other. Okay, what what is the byproduct of it. There's a gift. There's a gift, quote unquote gift or whatever, that is left over from these contacts. And it's time for people to start showing them. And because this is the next step of, this is real disclosure, like proving that, okay, there's remnants left over from this encounter, consciously, spiritually, energetically, that is left over. We need to start showing them that it's actually there, and that's proof. That's better than any video or anything else.
I look at these beings, and I think of all different outcomes of a situation, like various different. So I don't think on just one path. I'll think of the opposing view as well, or I'll think of an alternative view to see what that end result is. And one thing that bothers me a little bit about, and maybe it's because I haven't had a direct interaction with an extraterrestrial, but I just feel like, a lot of people that are out there kind of hold these extraterrestrials as like high and mighty sort of entities that are, an example of perfection, in that they have it all figured out. And I really think that truthfully, they may have some things that we're still dealing with figured out, and they may be enlightened, definitely in some aspects above where we're at consciously. And I think, there is a point where we could get to where they're at consciously, whether that's, through interactions with them, or whether it's just evolution as time goes on and we figure things out. But I think even with them, I think if we were to understand where they're at consciously, I would still think that there's things that they haven't figured out about the universe that we're in, or things that they still battle with or are concerned with, right? So, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I've sat and thought about that sometime. Like maybe they are super enlightened beings, but maybe there's, it's like a child and an adult that's gone and has all these degrees. This adult knows way more than you know currently. You could ascend to get to that level after time, but then even at that level, you still haven't figured things out. And I think maybe, I've thought about these beings being that same way. And if that's the case, then it kind of bothers me sometimes when people look at these entities as these supreme all-knowing things that are perfect beings and have it figured out, and they would never do these other things because they are so far past that. It's just something that within inside of me, thinking logically, kind of bothers me, right? I don't know, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree. I agree. I agree with the first part of it for sure. I think they're time and time again when we've looked through history, in all the different societies, especially Egypt, Peru, we hear these stories of what we can perceive as ET coming down and they're being revered as a god, like lowercase g, taking a page from Billy, talking about lowercase and uppercase G, God, yeah, they're looked at as lowercase gods, lowercase g gods. So, but that's not saying that they're God or the source, whatever you want to call it, the head, the head of, of the universe, the whole creation or whatever, the creator, whatever you want to call it. But so I totally agree with you. I don't think, and I'm not looking at them as they're all knowing, but I don't think. I think we're looking at the understanding of oneness consciousness, or really embodying oneness consciousness, or Jesus consciousness, or Brahma consciousness, whatever. There's several different ways, and all these different religions prelude to this understanding, and it's the understanding of. Not just the religion is a road to get there. I that's why I you never hear me knocking any organized religion like Catholic, Christian. That's all a road to get to to get to a point. And even Native American ceremonies, it's a road to get to a point. That's where you don't see me participating in ceremonies that often anymore, because I see it as a road to a point. You know, the Sundance is not a lifelong commitment. It was a road to get to an understanding, and I got what I needed out of it. And that's, you know, one of my last experiences in the Arbor was a near death experience, and that only compounded the messages that rang deeper.
Yeah.
I believe that this is something I say a lot. I'll finish with this. The duality, what we see when we go into, what people talk about all the time when they come back from ayahuasca ceremony or a 5-7 gram psilocybin experience, ketamine treatment. It was perfect. When I was over there, everything was perfect, and they come back, and after a while, you understand everything is perfect. The nature of this creation is divinity, perfect divinity, perfect creation. Our perception is the only thing that is different. When you align with the divinity of nature, things start happening that are supernatural.
Okay, I can get with that. And it's still this, you know, it's a rabbit hole. Obviously, another one, but it's a big rabbit hole actually, because we could agree to disagree on some of that stuff, right? Because none of us know the answer to it. We can look at certain things and try to gauge, you know, an outlook or perspective on what it is that we're experiencing. And for one, I think you're more enlightened than other people because of some of the things you've gone through, right? And for someone who maybe hasn't taken the steps that you've taken, maybe it's just something they can't understand, and it's not reality to them because they haven't gone through that, like the ayahuasca ceremony, which is another reason why I want to do it, because I would like to see where my thought process is once I've, you know, had some sort of really, really enlightening experience, and see if my perspective changes on certain things. But as it stands in this moment right now, just basing things off of logic, and, you know, I come to certain conclusions, you know, and I don't just think of it one way. I think of it multiple different ways and see what makes sense. But, you know, maybe going through an enlightenment, something enlightening, like expanding your mind through ayahuasca or just meditation. Maybe I haven't really tried that. I could probably do that too, and kind of see where it takes me. But as it stands in this moment, yeah, go ahead.
Now, I was a skeptic, man, and that's maybe why I've had such crazy experiences. You know, I've had when the eagle come to me. You know, come to me in a dream. I spoke about this before. It come to me in a dream. And 4 months later, it come to a vision. The first time it come to me was just a dream, and it's when I hadn't smoked weed in like 7 days. You know, I'm a heavy smoker. I smoke every day, but when I don't smoke for a couple of days, my dreams started going crazy. So dream I had after not smoking weed for like 7 days was I was walking down a dirt road, holding the eagle, sun setting at the end of the road, and, you know, crying, and flashed out of that. Knew it felt very real. 4 months later, had a vision in an ayahuasca ceremony, exact same vision. Within 7 days after that ayahuasca ceremony, it manifested that in the physical, in the same exact scene that I saw in the dream, in the vision, and then that same scene manifested in the physical. I can't tell you how many experiences that are just like that, just as profound, that's happened to me, especially with animals. Through my time since 2016, since I first drank ayahuasca. That's why I want to share those things, because people always say ayahuasca opened you up, or ayahuasca showed you this or that. Ayahuasca did open me up, but there's so many profound experiences that happened to me in real life that I can't deny, that something else is in the works there. And it's never, there's not one time that one of those things has led me down a dark road, like to do something bad or a depressive state or anything like that. Sure, other stuff that's happened in my life that, you know, has been hard to deal with and emotionally this, that, and the other, but anything like that it's only led me to the light.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me so many times I can't deny it, Rob. You know, for me, it's the truth. And that's all I share is my story, my truth. You know, I don't try to preach. I don't try to be a guru. Because one of the things that was told me when I was given the message to share this message was people are going to try to deify you at one point in your life. You have to steer away from that and don't let them deify you, because you will derail what you're trying to do. You're trying to take away all deities and take away all middlemen, so every single one of us can have a direct connection to source.
Yeah. Yeah, understood, man. It gets deep, man. It really does. And you know, the synchronicity, there are definitely things that you can see in waking life, because I ain't smoked weed in months, just to keep it real. I mean, I think maybe you know, I don't know. I've experienced that my mind doesn't it isn't as focused, right? When and I don't know what that, I don't know if it's just the, you know, my ability to to focus on life things, or yeah, just my mind doesn't work in the same way, you know what I mean? But I've had experiences like LSD and you know, things like that, where my mind just went to these wild places, and I came back from that feeling more enlightened. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the tool that you use uh that works differently for other people, I guess. I don't know the best way to say that, for me at least.
Yeah, I believe that too. You know, you know, just like some people, you know, they smoke a joint and, you know, they have an anxiety attack, you know, and some people smoke a joint to counteract an anxiety attack. Like, you know, there's this, it reacts differently to different people. And but, you know, marijuana has been part of my life since probably I was, you know, 11, 12 years old. I started early, you know, and it's always been there. Even when I was in the military, you know, you know, we'd spoke a joint here and there in Iraq, and, yeah, just, it's always been helpful to me, to calm down and get out of my head, you know. Like I said, I was a skeptic going into all this. Like when I first drank ayahuasca in 2016, I had no spiritual belief, like anything like that. The only thing that I knew there was something else out there, but I did not care at all. Like it did not interest me. It did not interest me to go down the road to figure it out or anything. I just didn't care. And, you know, that second ayahuasca ceremony, like it showed me that there was another side, and it showed me that I could spend the rest of my life exploring it and I would never fully understand it. And you know, I was like, well, this is a never ending book. You know, the human experience is a never ending book. And I just started going into it, asking questions, going into that space and asking questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's where we'll end the wrap up. If you can stay here with me, I'm going to go ahead and rock into this news story real quick.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. But I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. I just wanted to ask everybody, did they know about some doomsday asteroid swarm? I had no clue, but apparently there's a story that says it's not going to be as bad as people have originally thought. So There's new research that indicates that the Torrid swarm contains fewer large asteroids than anticipated, suggesting a lower threat level. This finding from observations using the Zwicky Transient Faculty telescope informs both planetary defense strategies and our understanding of how comets and asteroids evolve. Discovering the Torrid swarm streams, astronomers have promised news about potentially hazardous asteroids near Earth. There aren't as many as previously thought. Using the Zwicky Transient Facility Telescope, ZTF, to scan large sections of the sky, a research team led by the University of Maryland examined a stream of space debris known as the Torrid Stream, which drifts close to Earth. The Torrid swarm, believed to be fragments of a large comet called Encke, appears from Earth as striking meteor showers each October and November. This area has long fascinated astronomers for its potential to hide dangerous asteroids, but until now, scientists could not confirm or disprove the existence of such hazards. The team shared their finding to the American Astronomical Society's Division for Planetary Sciences annual meeting in October of 2024. We took advantage of a rare opportunity when this swarm of asteroids passed closer to Earth, allowing us to more efficiently search for objects that could pose a threat to our planet, said Kwanzi Yi, who supervised the project and is assistant research scientist in UMD's Department of Astronomy. Our findings suggest that the risk being hit by a large asteroid in the Torrid swarm is much lower than we believed, which is great news for planetary defense. Prior to the study, researchers speculated that the Torrid swarm contained a considerable number of large kilometer-class space rocks left behind by a large object, possibly up to 100 kilometers or 62 miles wide. Large objects can cause regional damage if they were to impact Earth, such as the Chelyabinsk asteroid that hit Russia and injured more than 1,600 people in 2013. Even larger objects can cause extinction-level events, such as the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs over 66 million years ago. Fortunately, we found that it's likely that there may only be a handful of asteroids, perhaps only 9 to 14 of them, that fit this large size class in the swarm. Yi explained, judging from our findings, the parent object that originally created the swarm was probably closer to 10 kilometers in diameter rather than a massive 100-kilometer object. While we still need to be vigilant about asteroid impacts, we can probably sleep better knowing these results. What do you think about that? Because we got about 30 seconds, Drew.
There's a lot of stuff out there. You know, there's no telling when we're gonna, get hit with an asteroid and, be the end of the dinosaurs. Who knows?
Yeah, if that's even what took the dinosaurs out, that is actually a conversation for another day. But with that being said, guys, keep your eyes up on the sky. Keep looking up because you never know what's coming in from out there. That Chelyabinsk asteroid actually came from the direction of the sun, so they never saw it coming. And we have examples of that from time to time. So doesn't seem to be a threat, but it could be. So it's something you should be aware of. With that being said, I definitely want to thank our guest for tonight, Jeff Selver, for an awesome conversation during hours 1 and 2. We're going to have him back for sure because these are conversations that move the needle. We also want to thank Steve Stockton, Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. We want to thank our guy right here, Drew Banky, this guy right here, for the After Hours wrap up. And we also want to thank you. We want to thank you guys out there. We also want to thank the guy you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. He's the man that rocks us out each and every weekend as he reminds us to never say never again. Because, yes, the phenomenon is real. That means anything and everything is possible. So if you love the show tonight, make sure you show some love, throw your horns up. Also, we want to thank our viewers online and listeners on terrestrial radio and digital platforms when and wherever in the world you may be listening from. We appreciate you for tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what is that, you ask? We own the night.
Own the night.
Remember, this show is copyright Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. It's been a pleasure serving you once again as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. That's Drew Banky. This is the After Hours Radio Show. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, as we go off air for the night, you can best believe that we will see you again soon. Much love. Take care out there. Till next time.
Dinosaur dragon connection. Yes. Yeah.
All right, we are clear for the night. Awesome show, guys. Definitely was a pleasure rocking out with you guys tonight. Hope you guys, feel enlightened with the conversation that happened tonight. Hopefully we move the needle, which is the goal each and every time we come on here. And tomorrow, I want to let you know who is here. It's Ross Allison, and we're going to be talking about to the paranormal realm. What entities exist beyond the veil with Ross Allison. So make sure you guys are here for that tomorrow, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Outside of that, we want to bid you guys farewell as we go ahead and shut the shop down as we rock out to this awesome outro, guys.
Follow your boy on social.
And throw your horns up. Here we go. We're out of here.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Beat in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened, I can taste it. We can make an impact, grab and then take it. Like a disease, bring to their knees. Pain for their disease. Just like a weed, spread into the streets. Time to make them bleed. Cause we just want retribution. Let's go light up the darkness. Make true of an empty promise. With God in the wicked.